70s, and 80s, where we see a shift in the ethical expression of African American culture. And we see it in our music, we see it in our depictions, we see it in the way we interrelate, we see it in our politics, we see it in the way we do economics. So something happened in that decade in the 70s that we need to uncover and really look at. And one way that I've been looking at this, because I do a little bit of filming, is that I've seen how many Black brothers started their own film production companies and started producing their own narratives, the depictions, oftentimes taking white movies and putting a black face on it with black actors and creating their own kind of film. And we call them today Black exploitation films. But when we look at a good percentage of those films that came out from 71 to 79, a lot of those films took the most ugliest part of our culture and tried to elevate it and tried to lift it. And behind those black film companies were larger white film companies that was
Mm.
funding and supporting it. And so you have both happening at the same time, where you having a specific agenda of white, larger film associations who have strong political ties and strong relationships with special interest groups that says, how do we get these niggas to stop looking at Bunchy Carter and Bobby Houghton, Huey Newton and Bobby Seale? How do we get them to stop listening to Eldridge Cleaver and focus on something else? And so I argue, this is my contend, I contend that there was a serious way of how they use film to create a different trope and a different stereotype and imagery of black masculinity that contradicted what they were seeing on the block with the brothers who was organizing and speaking on the corners. And so when you got someone who if you got in 1979, 78, if you had the opportunity to go listen to H Rap Brown versus watching Superfly, most of the times you're gonna like, man, I'm gonna go watch Superfly versus go and listen to this nigga talk about this stuff over here. Excuse my expression. But that's the shift that happened. That's part of the psychology that impacted us, that changed. And I'm only using film as one auspice to be able to elevate this reality, because we could look at it in music, we can look at it in
Mm-hmm.
literature, we can look at it in education. But I'm using film because you can see it more clearly. Like, we went from the politicized voices in our community to looking at the superficial imageries on the film. And we started to emulate the superficial imageries on the films that was oftentimes based on negative tropes. According to the brother that Logic interviewed last year, that goes back to the 1830s and 1840s. That's why I was excited for
You
that
talking
brother to
about
come back.
James? You talking about James Smalls? James
No,
Small?
no, 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 no.
Okay.
Who's the Logic? Who's the brother you interviewed that did that whole piece on minstrel shows, the caricatures, and he
Talking
brought it
about
all
true
the way
story,
to
and I don't know how true it
true
was, but
story.
I actually really wanted him to finish what he started because
Yeah,
like that was
yeah.
that's such a I mean I don't that was a fantastic idea. I don't know how
We
true
gotta
it
bring
is,
that brother.
but
No, it's very true. I followed his notes and
bro,
I digged up everything that he was putting on the
I
table, and
have
I found some books on it. And he was pulling some pieces up on the caricatures of white folks and how they ended up becoming black faces, and how that eventually showed up in the early depictions of black folks behind films like Oscar Micheaux and Lawrence Went Burns and some of these other black filmmakers. But we also see that same thing going all the way forward to the 1970s. And that's what I was excited for him to come back to, because when we look at some of these larger film associations and how they funded, back to Haskell's question, how they funded black filmmakers, we see black folks participating in our own demise in adjacent and in connection to white interest group who had a very investment in distracting us away
right.
from our own political progression. So I hope
Right.
that
So
answers
when
your
you get
question,
into
Brother
that breath,
Haskell.
right? When you get into that breath, now then you gotta at least consider the limited roles that we were allowed to play in entertainment, and of course the limited archetypes of us in entertainment, and how that would have perpetuated those stereotypes from that time. So that, I mean, that's a super deep conversation. Again, I've never seen it in a book. I've never seen an expert break it down that way, but it is a very very interesting concept. Like very
Absolutely.
the fact that we could possibly not be the author of our own what is cool in our community, that could be, very interesting. I mean, and very possible, right? When you talk about cultural influences, especially talk about pop culture, pop music, entertainment, and how much of an effect that would have on the entire America. Why wouldn't it also have some effect on us?
Hmm.
This goes back to intelligence to me. And I'm sorry, every time we talk, I'm starting to think that either it's no way that the so-called white man, right, could just move us towards negativity, like constantly, like he's everywhere. Like anytime like it gotta be something innately in us that he's exploiting, right? So you got to look at yourself. Either way you look at it, right? It, if if he's saying, okay, these niggas got pride. So the white man sat there and said, since they got pride themselves, I want to shake that. I'm going to give them or play up the negative things about themselves and make them love it. And then that way, I'm going to get money off of them destroying themselves or getting negative uh, reinforcement about themselves, right? And it's going to fuck them up, but it's going to make me rich by doing, like, this motherfucker got to be so brilliant. We cannot compete with him
Can
if
I
this
can I
shit's
jump
true.
in? Can I jump in real
Go,
quick?
go ahead. He gotta be
Trade,
next level.
So the word that
we
I would
trade the
use,
word out.
it
Oh, go
wouldn't
ahead. Go
be,
ahead.
yeah, the word I would use, chef, instead of brilliant is um they are supremely conniving and
Mm.
supremely clever. You know what I'm saying?
Mm.
And I think um I think people like you, Chef, I think to a degree, y'all severely underestimate that.
I have to. No, I'm not. I'm scared. I'm scared that y'all might be telling the truth. And if y'all
Right.
telling
It
the
is
truth,
scary.
right? If y'all telling the
It is
truth,
scary.
we're not capable of fucking with them. Meaning, our intelligence is not capable of maneuvering and dealing with that type of guy. Meaning, his cunning and guile is more than our intelligence to get out of it. Meaning, the trap of the trapper is more witty than the motherfucker that is no way out.
I would say, Chef, like I would replace the word intelligence with savviness, right? I would say that, like, as far as game goes, like, I think white folks are more game savvy, and then they willing, like, also, like, it's the willingness, right? So they're more willing to do things that, like, black folks wouldn't do. You know what I'm saying? It's got to do with savviness and kind of like culture a little bit. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if I would use the word intelligence in that way, but I mean, that's just me. That's my thing. You know what I mean?
What
I
about
don't.
savagery? What about savagery? And then now,
No, no, not
this
savage,
no,
not savagery, savvy,
no,
savvy,
all right,
like meaning understanding. Yeah, go ahead.
all right. Then if we continue along this line, we are going. If you start to agree with what most people with what Chef is saying, that they at this level, then you'll start to agree with a Francis Chris Wilson. because that's a conversation we're still having, but we're having it in a different way. Is that are these people normal or natural? Are we resigning to the fact that our our status as a people is directly as a result of their savviness, of their intelligence, of their makeup? And if so, because there's no doubt about it, no white man can ever win the 100-meter race again, ever. They cannot. If the history of the last 5 Olympics have shown anything, right? We know our strengths, but do we accept theirs?
Mm.
Is there strength in them that can have? Are we willing to accept that we are better at certain things than them, and not accept that they are more savvy at certain things than us? Are all men are created equal? Is that what we're saying?
I don't think it's 100% savviness. I'm saying like I would say Africans did it too, and maybe other groups of people came in and built off of that. But I like when Africans would enslave other African tribes and remove their culture from them. I don't think they had some systematic, oh, if we take away their religion, then we can now force them to behave like this. I don't know if it systematically happened that way, but that might have just been like the way of doing things. And just turns out like, oh, over years and years and years, they got better at it, unfortunately. So I
I
don't
don't
think
think y'all
that some
considering.
of
I
that
don't
was
think y'all consider the fact that no matter how long ago it was, right? Humans still had the same brain capacity as we got today, right? So
yeah,
when
they did, but I don't
y'all
think
think
that they
about
knew the way
nothing,
we
they
know
had the
now.
capacity. They had the capacity to think in the way we think. They just didn't have the technology, but the brain capacity, the thought capacity, the thought processes, that's all been there. That's all been there from day one, bro. So like all of the game that's been ran has been ran since time immemorial. People been
Right,
running
right.
game on one
That's
another.
more like what I'm getting at. But that
Yeah, people been
people might be
running
better
game
at
on
it,
one another.
but it wasn't
And
like,
then
oh, the
others
white.
are more savvy at the game at run. Others are more savvy at running game than others. That's all I'm saying. So like because I be listening to the way like these conversations go. It's like the further back in time we go, like the more ignorant we think the people are. But they've had the same kind of brain capacity that we got today. But go ahead, y'all.
Yeah, I mean, maybe they could tell from trial and error that the further we can remove a group of people from their culture, the more docile they become. I mean, whatever they might have observed in their time of being conquerors or whatnot. That would just be
200,000 years, 200,000 years with a
right.
brain like
That's a
yours,
long time to perfect that stuff for sure.
right? With a brain like yours, Logic, 200,000 years is a long motherfucking time. You can figure out a lot of shit, bro. Believe me. But go ahead.
If
I
you
actually,
can breed, if you can breed, if you
I agree with
can breed domestication, right? If you can breed domestication into other animals, then you can alter human populations. Like that
Right.
is just that is just so that's a conversation
So the
that
Nubians were able to do it a long time ago, right?
what you mean?
So since the Nubians domesticated a dog a long time ago, like you could say that they had an idea of how to break a person down in a similar way. That would you could kind
Yeah,
of. Are
yeah,
you saying
yeah,
you kind of say that?
I'm saying that I always pondered, right, whether slavery and the forced breeding had other components to it just other than just producing more workers. I think you know I I kind of trifle with the thought that maybe the same way that we will breed dogs, right? Maybe that's the same way that human beings can be breeded for certain traits,
It's
right? And
docility. They were
yeah,
No, but,
breeding for the docility. But go ahead.
no,
I'm not saying that, but I'm wondering if that if that's what we could be looking at, because it's no way, right? Even we're going to have to accept a few things here. We got to put them on the table, like, you feel me? We got to put things on the table. We got to put on the table whether they're more intelligent than us. It got to be on the table, bro. You feel me? Um,
but, but, Sheffrin, I would inverse it instead of docileness, because if we look at it, the ruling classes throughout millennium come from a set group. If we look at most ruling classes, if we look at the ruling classes in most European countries, they came from a set group. They didn't came from those people in the field tilling the soil, right? So what were they breeding for? Were they breeding for certain characteristics, certain leadership traits, certain kind of savviness? Don't worry about the lower classes. Look at the upper classes, because that's a more group that we can a more observable, measurable group. What were they breeding for? Because
yeah.
I used to have friends who breed racehorses, and I'm saying you breed the best with the best and hope for the best. You breed the cunning with the cunning and hope for even more cunningness. What were they breeding for? And are those traits still available today? But we can't talk about that because it goes against a lot of things that we don't believe in anymore. Because that's no scientific racism. Inverse. But I understand what you're saying. But this is why I push back on your Sheffrin. We need time. We need time. The oldest factory in Japan, continuous factory in Japan, is 1400 years old. Think about that. 1400 years old. Their culture, even when invaded, even in China, when invaded, their culture had the strength of time and population to bounce back after invasion. We were taken away and fragmented. So we didn't bounce back. We have to relearn our culture. Black American culture is a new culture. It's something that you develop, and it has growing pain.
Yeah, they're and with other groups that were colonized, like the Indians, the Japanese, etc. They weren't, compared to our group, they weren't just completely decimated in terms of, they were allowed to retain their humanity
Mhm.
and, retain their languages, you know, most of their cultural norms, so they have continuity. When you talk about West and Central Africans specifically, all of that was taken away. That's why I don't like the comparisons when we say, okay, the Greeks did this and the Italians did this and the Jews like, our circumstance is just so unique from theirs. Is no comparison.
What Western Central Africans kept their language, their culture, and their religion. That stuff
No,
is
I'm
still
talking
in
about
Western
those. No,
Right,
no,
right,
no, no.
right. So I'm saying not I'm take the African
Mhm.
American out. I'm saying even
Okay, okay.
the African. You feel me? And
Mhm.
even if you compare the continental Africans, right? The, you'll see the same
But
shit going
right,
on.
but those,
You'll see the
but
same. So how? So
but
why is it
see,
always different? That don't make
here's
sense to
where
me.
here's where a lot of times we make a logical miscalculation, right? Because we often think about those who were left on the continent, particularly in those regions, as
Yeah.
they never got their mores and norms and cultures reconfigured, when in truth a lot of the things that we see on the continent, like a lot of those ethnic groups and a lot of the things they practice and stuff, that's not theirs.
What?
I
If
don't know
you
where
look,
Haskell's going,
if
but
you
Chef, if you
let me hold on,
go ahead,
let me
I'm let you
try to
finish.
refine it. Let me try to refine it for him.
Yeah,
Let's
fix
say,
that.
yeah.
This nigga
So
clear his throat.
if you go if you go to Kenya, or well, that's not West Central Africa. If you go to, let's say, Nigeria, right? And you look at their education system, that doesn't come out of their cultural milieu. Like, you'd be shocked. Like, if you were to go and see how they're educated from K through 12, right? And the things that they're taught, like, that's not coming from their culture.
The religion. Mention the religion also. The
Yeah,
Islamic.
the religion is a part of that whole cultural kind of complex or milieu. It's not theirs.
Right. Christianity. Muslim. The majority of them are either Christians or Muslims. That's not theirs. The way they dress now. They might have on the African colors, but when you look at how they're dressing now, it's more in fashion with an early European style from the 1800s. That's not theirs. And it goes across the continent. If we're comparing it, if we're being honest, is that their culture was infused, got an infusion of external cultures, which changed the dynamic severely over generations.
That's what they accepted, right?
So
That's something. Oh,
it just naturally.
yo, you're telling me that Africans don't have no agency. This is like I'm done. I'm done. I'm gonna let y'all have this conversation.
No, no, no,
See,
no.
this
They
is
got
where
they
No,
got it.
hold up,
They
Chef.
got it, yo.
Hold up,
They
Chef.
got it. They got
It's
it.
about
No, hold up,
Like
Chef.
you got it, yo.
You
no,
going off the deep end, yo. I got to throw a
all
life
right.
ramp out there to
see,
get me.
Yeah,
No,
let
but
me
hold up a second.
culture is not about
Wait
age.
a second. But Chef, you always got to practice inverting your argument, right? So that's how you can stay from sounding too damn crazy, right? Because you can see Africans that weren't as heavily impacted by colonialism as others, and if those, like, with everything being equal genetically, right, then those people should be thriving. But of course, it's the how do I prop this open? Of course, it's
but
like
where in
the
Africa,
social pressures that's keeping them down.
wasn't impacted by colonialism. There's only one country, and even they were
I'm only gonna be like three
they
minutes.
were they claim they never been colonized, but that's kind of not true either.
Or Ethiopia. They definitely was
Hmm.
colonized. Nobody
No,
Right.
I'm not saying never colonized, but I'm saying like where the effects were minimal, you should see a big difference, right? Because
Right. Right.
you almost floated into a genetic argument, right? So
Yeah, I think
I
that's
guess
where
to
this
keep you from going that
conversation is
far,
is so. Yeah, that's what made the conversation tough, right? Because how do you acknowledge the manipulations of the people who happen, and fate has something to do with this also, right? Because when they converted the Chinese invention of gunpowder into guns, and then they upgraded to the Gatling gun, you could have all the guile that you want, but that technological superiority that they had over the rest of the world really just catapulted them into a position to where they could enact that kind of manipulation, right? So if we look at what happened in the Congo and what Leopold did down there, right? Not only was the colonization and the manipulation of the culture and all that, you're talking about wide scale genocide, right? Brain drain and things like that. So I think often we look at slavery as like being this completely different thing from colonialism. You know what I'm saying? A lot of the Africans taking on certain practices and stuff that's not theirs. It wasn't just through osmosis, or they just, well, I was gonna say it wasn't just because they found that culture enticing. They did to a degree, and that's speaking to Chef point. And that's why I think, Chef, you shouldn't get frustrated with the talking points that like me and Stu Peas and others espouse, because we absolutely acknowledge our own failing, right? Our own stake in that. I think where the conversation gets tricky is to what degree are we assigning our agency in terms of where we're at and the manipulation of the dominant society, or the people who got up 40 points on the scoreboard. You know what I'm
I
saying?
think Chef though. I think what Chef's saying is, why don't we start there though? Why don't we start with our agency and then fan out into the other agency? I think that's where the clarification, because we are. I mean, like, I think the other horse done been beat to death already, right? You know what I mean? Like, what we understand, they did colonialism. We understand they brought their religion. We understand they had a Gatling gun and all of this. Okay, now we done said that for 1,000 years. Now let's talk about the accountability in the agent. You see what I'm saying? I think we should start there and then fan out. You know what I'm saying? But I think people get kind of uncomfortable with that, and that's where we start to kind of be dishonest with ourselves. We don't want to be honest about what's being said or what's being implicated. You know what I mean? When we do talk about certain things, we do talk about. I don't think we actually honest about what's being implicated there, or we ain't
No,
comfortable with it. You know what I'm saying?
But Corey, if we're honest, we're winning then. If we are honest, all right, let's look at it as a swimming race. This person already built a pool, already manufactured chlorine, already got the water for the pool, the electricity for the pump, and we're still in the river swimming. And we can come out of the river and enter a race. Even when we come dead last, the mere fact that we're still in the race has shown that we have been successful. We might not be winning, but the mere fact that we're competing with all the obstacles that we face is a triumph. Now give us time. Let us build our own pool. Let us get our own tennis rackets and see how we compete in tennis. I use the sports as an analogy. We're winning. In face of all the obstacles, we can still compete, mean that we're winning.
Absolutely. I think that's a good point. I think that is a good point in the face of all the obstacles, especially African Americans. Even when we come off the continent, we just deal with African Americans. I think in spite of all the things that we do face, I think we are giving it a hell of a game. We're giving it a good college try. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. In spite of all the obstacles.
And that's fine, and that makes us kind of feel the butterflies and makes us all feel good and soft and squishy, right? But do we want to talk? But I'm talking about the part that I was talking about earlier. You know, the African accountability, the African American
Agency.
accountability,
Yeah.
the agency. You see what I'm saying? Like,
it's no doubt about it,
about.
Corey, that a lot of us we take respite in the fact that there's this kind of superstructure over us that's, and we kind of resign ourselves into that. And you get comfortable, like, like, oh well, they just up, and they just, so hey, what can we do? That definitely is in the cultural rubric, no doubt about it.
Well, okay, so why can't we say, well, look what we've done. Look what Africans have done, and how are those decisions affecting us today? You see what I'm saying? Nobody really wanted. That's a conversation that nobody's really comfortable with. The fact that they already had a swimming pool before, you know what I'm saying? Like, they wasn't around when they was figuring out how to get the chlorine and the swimming pool and the pump and all of that. That's Stupee's name. They wasn't in West Africa. They was figuring all that out back in Europe. You see what I'm saying? So what was we doing when they was figuring out how to build the swimming pool, make the pump, invent the chlorine and all of that? What the fuck was we doing when they was figuring that out? When they went over when they went over to China and turned the Chinese gunpowder into a Gatling gun, right? What was we doing when they was doing that? See,
Yeah, you were doing.
this goes to the point where I was talking about the worldliness. You see what I'm saying? To me, this goes right into the conversation of being worldly, having access to different ideas. You know what I'm saying? I think that's the real conversation. I think that's where those Europeans and those people in that area, right? I think that's where they gain their advantage at. I think they gain their advantage through the worldliness. So none of it was one person's idea or one group's idea. This is a bunch of groups of ideas over thousands of years coming together to eventually get a Gatling gun. You see what I mean?
Right.
And when you're not as worldly, there's not as many ideas. You see what I'm saying? You don't face as much adversity. You need adversity. First of all, to invent a Gatling gun, you got to need a reason to invent a Gatling gun, right? To get the chlorine, to invent the chlorine for the swimming pool, right? You got to have a swimming pool first. You got to have an idea of a swimming pool before you invent the chlorine for the swimming pool. You know what I mean? So I think the conversation, like most of the time, we get the cart ahead of the horse on a lot of these conversations, which keeps bringing us back to the same circle. We keep going in the same circle when we're not. I heard old girl say, one of my favorite black ladies now. She's one of my new favorite black ladies. She say we're pruning the leaves instead of cutting at the root. You know what I mean? Pruning the leaves ain't gonna get us nowhere. If we need the tree gone, we need the goddamn. If the tree growing wild, we need to cut the motherfucker down. That way we won't have to worry about it no more. We need to get to the root cause, rather pruning around the leaves. You know what I'm saying? But
Yeah, no, you're right.
That's all
You're
I got
right.
for that.
Keep talking about external forces. The white man is the external force, right? You know what I mean? At some point in time, you're going to have to look inward on yourself and wonder why is that external force so powerful on my internal? You dig what I'm saying? On the it got to be something in you that makes them so what's the word I'm looking for? It got to be something in you that makes them so effective. You dig what I'm saying? Like, yo, if I keep pulling the same trick, like if I go get a child and I do the same trick over, eventually that child is going to catch on. So if y'all tell me that we had the same amount of time as any other group, and y'all telling me that the same trick, you know what I mean, is being pulled on, and we haven't caught on yet, yo, it gotta be something wrong with our intelligence.
Let me jump in. Let
It
me
gotta
jump in
be.
right there.
Y'all gotta put that on the table. Hold on, Haskell, because I don't believe the white man is the devil. You dig what I'm saying? Don't believe that, so that's off the table. You dig what I'm saying? I don't believe that he's inherently evil, because that's supernatural also. You dig what I'm saying? They haven't found an evil genetic component to human beings yet. So he don't have an abundance of that we know of mean genes, right? Let's say that, right? We haven't found that yet. You dig what I'm saying? So obviously, right? Either y'all, if y'all keep putting those things out there, I gotta say y'all running away
All
from
right.
the
Well,
obvious.
well,
So
think
it either
about
gotta be culture. Hold on, let me play my plane. It either has to be something in our culture. You dig what I'm saying? That's allowing them to manipulate us, right? Or there has to be something genetically that's allowing them to manipulate, meaning they're smarter than us. Like it's already, I can get my dog to do the same trick over and over. I can lead him to food over and over. I can get, if he runs away, I can get him to come back with fucking cheese every fucking time. It never changes,
well,
yo. You
I want to
feel me?
say, right?
Because
Let's take it off of
I'm superior to him
yeah,
mentally. I
but
know
let's
what
take it
makes
off
him
of the
work.
African. Let's take it off of the African descendants for a minute, right? And go back to the point that Stupi's made that when we say white people, we're really talking about um, a particular subsection of who we call white people, because in feudalism they were manipulating the masses of their people the same way, right? And it's the ruling class, the elites, or what they call it, of quote unquote white people that do the manipulation and have all the guile and all of that stuff, right? And they really refined um, how they manipulate populations in that feudal period, right? So when I think about, for example, what precipitated America's participation into World War One, and what Cecil Rhodes and all those gentlemen, I don't know if y'all that familiar with that history and how they manipulated and fomented that war, right? They established it wasn't the genesis of it, but in terms of how they manipulate the American population into supporting wars, that particular strategy was born out of what happened with World War One. So Cecil Rhodes had a dream of basically Anglo hegemony worldwide, and he wanted to basically
Oh, getting the
reincorporate.
power.
Yeah, he basically wanted to reincorporate America back
Yeah,
into the
yeah,
Anglosphere,
that's where I'm coming out of here from. Coming out of here into there.
right? And then with that
Oh no, no,
coalition,
no. Yeah,
they
I'm
would
gonna
be,
have to
yeah, mute out real
iron that.
quick, mute out Logic. And then with that coalition, they would basically, reestablish the British Empire. Now, prior to that, Woodrow Wilson promised the American public, it was part of his campaign, the main part of his campaign, that we're not going to get involved in Europe's business. Like, we not getting involved in no war. Like, we not doing that. And the American public was dead set against going into war. No, fuck that, right? Then what happened is, the next thing you know, the Lusitania got sunk, right? And 128 Americans was on that ship, right? So now that roused up the public, right? So now that builds the fervor for America to enter the war. Now, America still didn't enter the war at that point, but the greater population was incensed about that incident. Now, they didn't know that the Lusitania was actually an auxiliary ship. And an auxiliary ship is a ship that was a civilian ship that was repurposed for battle, right? It was outfitted with all type of guns. They had all kind of munitions on that motherfucker, all type of shit, right? So the Germans sunk that motherfucker, because what auxiliary ships do is, because it looks like a civilian vessel, what they would do in war is they'd pull up on you, like, right? Let's say you were a warship on the opposite side, right? Because it looked like a civilian ship, they could get right up on you. And then once they get up on you, boom, the guns just come up, the guns come out, boom, boom, and now, they get you out the way. So the Germans, they peeped that, and they sunk the ship. So now that cabal of Cecil Rhodes and all his cronies used that to put it in the press and push that, and then the American public started getting worked up. Okay, eventually down the line, um, they manipulated the Germans again with the whole blockade of Europe and not allowing things to come into Germany in particular, particularly food. So now the German population is fucking starving. At some point, the Germans say, "Fuck that, we gotta go to war," and they engage in battle on the high seas to obliterate that blockade, and that's how World War I started. My point is this: that same trick, and they had a bunch of other propaganda campaigns too with the whole bayonets. They were claiming that the Germans were stabbing babies with bayonets and all crazy shit, right? And they put that shit all in the media. So now the same American public that was dead set against war, all of a sudden, now we got to get the motherfucking Germans, right? So, and then when you come down into the ages, all through the ages, it's the same manipulation. When you look at the Kuwait War, weapons of mass destruction, and then what happened when they actually went in there? It was no weapons of mass destruction. So my point is, a certain entity of Europeans, they got on top and they've refined cunningness, and we're not the only ones susceptible to it at all.
The umbrella is called social engineering. It is a thing. I believe it's
Absolutely.
super duper duper powerful.
Super
And
powerful.
like you're saying, like you're saying, it's not a weapon specifically for African Americans. No, it is the weapon for the entire public, right? That's how they move the entire herd. You know what I'm saying? Even the people that we consider voting against their own interests would be falling victim to social engineering.
Sound like a lot of whataboutism to me. That's just my
Where's the
opinion.
whataboutism?
Well, what about how these people fell for tricks? What about how
Well,
the Germans
you'd have to
fell
consider
for
that
tricks?
if you're talking about everybody. You'd have to consider
I
how
don't think we were
everybody.
talking about everybody. I think we were talking about the Africans and
There
African
you go,
Americans.
Corey. There you go, Corey. That's the Joker card they always pull. They always
This
pulling that.
nigga
What
dog.
about this?
Oh,
What
so
about
oh,
that?
so
Sound
so
like they
African
they in
Americans are
court.
more
It,
susceptible
it
than other
sound like
groups
a
of
kid
people. Is that what you're
going in the
saying?
detective's office and
No,
say,
I'm
"But
saying,
but mommy,
but
we
we,
did
we
it."
need to be asking questions. The questions we're not asking is my thing, right? So we keep coming back to the white man is manipulative. He using social engineering. You can see how he used on these people and on these people, right? The question is, where's our agency? Where's our accountability? That was what my question is. When do we start considering, okay, what were we doing at this time? Again, when Stu Pease brought up the swimming pool, right? They figured out the chlorine, the swimming pump, all of the rest of it, right? When they was figuring out the chlorine and the pool and the pump and all of that, what were we figuring out? See what I'm saying? So that's kind of where the conversation where I have yet to see the conversation go. You know what I mean?
Facts,
I've
facts.
heard all of the reasons. I heard about the Gatling gun. I've heard about the social engineering. I've heard about
How would
the
how would
shit.
you answer that question,
I've
Fetty?
heard,
What were we doing while
No, I'm
what
saying
were we
I'm
doing
saying
while
for
other
the
people
past.
were inventing?
I've been getting killed for the past almost 2 years for highlighting the fact that I see that people want to blame external forces for everything dealing with African Americans, and it seems as if when a black person is in a group and they want to highlight things that we could have done to make our situation better from then until now, you either get labeled a certain way or the conversation doesn't get progressed to where we even have a conversation dealing with accountability. When I talk about culture and toxic aspects of music, people's rebuttal is, well, the mainstream media and the white man is the one that made it popular, and so it's like every rebuttal or every talking point that deals with accountability, the main deflection is either one, well, what about the other group, and da da da, or two, it's just the main deflection. So that's all I'm saying. Like, I'm glad that the conversation is progressing to a point where we can, get past the whole blaming external forces for everything. You know what I mean? That's my only thing.
Here's my question,
Because a
right?
lot of these conversations aren't rooted in what
And
Corey is
not that
saying.
the external force, not that the external is not a force or not an
Right,
issue. It's just
right,
that, like, I think we done beat that horse to death.
right.
It's time to what Shepard said. It's time to start looking inward now.
hmm
Well, that's my attempt. What I'm saying, like we got the power to create our own culture and our dynamic. We don't have to go back and find how much of it we can preserve. We can just look at each independent issue that we're having and use our know-how and wherewithal to create. This is the
No,
best way
no,
for us
I'm
moving
not
forward.
saying. I'm not saying going back to see what we can preserve. Right? It's going back and see what mistakes was made. What preventative measures can we take in the future? You see what I'm saying? What did work and what didn't work, right? Figure it out, like what it was to get us where we at. You know what I'm saying? Like a real understanding, rather than trying to look back to find something to preserve, right? Let's look back to find something that we should never do again, ever. Let's look back and say, like, at least that thing right there, this thing, and this thing, we know for sure we should never ever do that again. See what I'm saying? Like
I heard
that's
Chef.
where I'll be. Go ahead.
No, I get what you're saying. I heard Chef this morning attribute the civil rights movement into African culture, right? I mean, I don't know if he did it intentionally, but so how would we describe like the civil rights movement? Because the way I would interpret it, I would call that social evolution, right? I would call that an observation human beings make after 200,000 years of doing things a particular way and recognizing that, hey, we're in complex societies and we can begin to do things this way, right? I don't view that as like a particular African thing. I view that as like humanity taking a step further, um, be it collectively or independently. That's how I see that, right? So how do y'all see that? And the reason I think it's important is because when we're talking about like self-evaluating and looking at ourselves versus them, that's the difference, right? So more people would say it'd be like a cultural thing, maybe something in our culture that allows us to do it and not them. I'm saying it's like social evolution, and it's a part of a larger scheme. How do y'all look at it? Was that complicated?
That was a little complicated for a construction worker, but I agree with what you're saying. I think there is a social component
And you
to it,
lied on me.
obviously.
And you lied on me. So I'm starting to
Uh-oh.
believe, like you said, yo just said that this morning I said that the civil rights movement was African culture. Like I don't remember what we was talking about an hour ago. Like you're a
I could
mess.
remember it wrong, bro. I will take it.
I'm going back on me. Yo, you crazy.
No, don't go on mute. Clean that up, because that's what I
No,
heard, bro. And
no,
if I'm wrong, I'm just wrong.
I
I
never said
swear
no
to
shit.
God,
Like
I heard
all I'm
that
gonna say,
on every.
look, all I'm gonna say is I ain't say no shit like that. Y'all can take it for
All
what
right,
y'all want, but
all
I'm
right,
not
cool.
going down that road.
I ain't gonna.
Next,
I ain't trying to
I'm
put
gonna be
that on
paying
you.
for a
Like, I ain't.
gorilla. I'm gonna be paying for a gorilla.
Nah, I wasn't trying to say it to be funny, bro. I swear to God, I'm looking at it. So like the point for me is like if I try to Africanize it, I think I start to miss, right. I start to miss the components where we were talking about how they didn't politicized a lot of these things. So I'm trying to like not allow it to go into a space where now I'm removing the external factors, right? So like we almost got into a place where we was like, well, the external factors ain't really doing nothing, or like, you know what I'm saying? Because you kind of came in hot, was talking about how we were discounting African culture in some kind of way. Martin Luther King came up, so I might have took that out of context. I might have took that out of context. That's what I
Well,
got.
let's start out saying that there are external factors that do very much matter, right? Let's
Right, right.
Mm-hmm.
and then let's move from there, right? We can all agree that there are external factors that very much matter, right? We done said that, right? So now let's start to move on from there. You know what I'm saying?
Okay. So since we got a clear, we're clear on external factors actually doing something. So we can't say, so from there we can't say none of this is on accident. Like it wasn't, it's not an accident that we've been put into society the way we have. Like all of that's been orchestrated. And yes, you would be having to give some people a lot of credit for orchestrating such an elaborate plan, but apparently there's some method to the design a little bit, unfortunately. So with that being said, I don't automatically jump to the conclusion, oh, these people just have to be by and large, so superiorly intelligent. I don't think that that's exactly what it means. I still just think you're talking about people taking advantage of opportunities.
Yeah. This convo ain't gonna be able to be had in good faith because it's gonna ultimately point to, like, once you get from the external forces or factors or whatever, you're gonna have to talk about culture, bro. You're gonna have to in some form or fashion. And some people don't like talking about things about
You're
culture.
gonna have to talk about another thing that's real uncomfortable. I'm just not gonna see. I'll be always the one that say it, right? But this time I'm not. I'm gonna let y'all do it this time. I'm gonna wait on. I can wait you niggas out. I can wait you niggas out for months, right? I will wait out literal months, right? The conversation not only is gonna have to be about just our culture, but we're gonna have to start talking about genetics and intelligence too.
Cool. Well,
See,
let's get that out the way,
lies
right?
on
Let's
yeah.
let's let's
See,
get
yeah.
let's get the gene conversation out the way because maybe I might be misunderstanding something. Because if I'm not mistaken, there's nothing you can do to breed albinism out of humanity, right? Like you can't. So when you're talking about trying to breed docileness into an entire population, well, what would happen to the aggression? Does it disappear? Does it become dormant? Like, will it resurface itself later? Like, you know what I'm saying? So, what are we saying genetically happens
It would be
through? through that?
you ostracize the aggressive guy. The aggressive guy, you are everybody looking at him like, bro, calm down. Every time he make a move, bro, hold on, bro, ain't that serious, bro, calm down, bro. No, don't do that, bro. No, you don't whoop his ass for that, bro. No, you can just talk. Like, yeah, you're gonna have a whole lot of that bullshit, right? The community, the society around that aggressive guy is he's either gonna be Josh or he's gonna assimilate. That's how that works. That's how
No,
that
but I'm
works.
saying
You
that,
know what I mean?
but the genes are still there. Like the culture might frown upon certain behavior, but the genes are still there, right? So this, right. So right now, I'm trying to get to have they been able to successfully breed a docile human, right? Because like to me, that would almost be like breeding a new organism. I like
No,
from what I
I don't
understand,
think
I
so.
could be
Like, look at
completely
the
wrong.
ball. Look at oh, look at it.
I
Look at the
jumped into it.
look.
What
Look
did
at
I say?
the grizzly bear. You think the grizzly bear ain't a grizzly bear because he know how to ride a unicycle now? Do you think that grizzly bear is no longer a grizzly bear anymore because now he knows how to ride a unicycle?
Right, but that would be more to my point. He's still a grizzly bear. He just rides a unicycle. So the genes haven't changed in the grizzly
Right.
bear. The behavior might have changed,
Something
but the
happened
No,
though.
genes didn't.
Something
Logic.
something happened. And
Logic.
then his offspring, even when he have an offspring, his offspring ain't gonna be as hard to train as he is.
A
You
question,
see what I'm
Logic.
saying?
Logic.
So it was
You
a
talked
long
about.
time before
Go ahead, go
the guy was the bear trainer, the circus guy was able to go into the cage with the bear. It was a long time. But when the grizzly bear has an offspring, that trainer is immediately gonna be able to go in the cage with the bear's offspring. But
Yeah.
go ahead. Something
And
happened there, but
is
go
that
ahead.
the genes? Is it?
Elijah. If we gonna talk about external forces, right, and how slavery and oppression, right, has been so profound on African Americans, take because I think you equating the gene conversation with intelligent genes and shit like that. Take that out of it. Do you agree that a chaotic or stressful environment can have a feedback loop on a person's biology? Do you? Let's start at
I'm
let's start
sure.
at the top.
I'm sure it has some effects. I'm sure it does.
All right, cool. All right, cool. So if this is the thing that confused me, if a person or group of people is always pointing to the harsh environment as to why that is the 100% cause of everything that's going on, again, bro, like it's data that's been proven and shown to even the winter study. I forgot where it was, where a group of kids was faced. They didn't have the proper nutrition. They was oppressed and things like that. And they generations had certain biomarkers dealing with epigenetics and shit like that. So I'm saying like it's a deep conversation to where even though the intelligence conversation is not necessarily an intelligence gene. It's not. That's not the conversation. It's like can certain factors dealing with say concentration being oh, damn, I got a phone call. But concentration, having a short fuse, anger issues, and all of that, and how that could play a result into other things in their daily life. That's what I'm saying. Like, even if you want to take that convo out of it, there's still an epigenetic convo that needs to be had, bro. Whether we like it or not, bro. And we can start at
No,
Vietnam.
and
We can start doing
I'd like
Vietnam.
to have it. I'd
Oh,
like to
good.
have it and feel like I'm not like just thoroughly confused, but I'm under the way I understand it, and you can just tell me if I'm wrong. Like you can, like there are things that you can read in and can read out, but like how do you like just reconstruct a human genetically? Like
It's
you're
not
talking
about
about traits.
reconstructing a human, bro. Like again, like the analogy that geneticists make, people walk around with eyeglasses. People think that something is genetic. It has to be a drastic change or when it comes to genetics, but in reality, people wear eyeglasses and we've invented things to, maximize that person, whoever has those glasses, to, you know, have a regular life, right? So I'm saying when people bring up genetics, it's like people get spooked out. But in reality, a lot of those things can be fixed. Like any other diagnosis dealing with like there's a lot of shit coming out that can help with that process, you know what I'm saying? So that's all I'm saying. Like it's a deep conversation, bro. And epigenetics and slavery, and even if y'all saying the shit never changed, and once we got out of slavery, we still been fucked up and all of that, it's like, has anything really, you know what I mean? So again, bro, we got to have a real conversation.
We're trying to have a real conversation around the genetic disposition of one particular group over another, and so now we're trying to throw away we're moving the example about intelligence to make a different example about docileness, right? When we haven't necessarily shown how you would put the intelligence in there, right? So now we're moving without even understanding how would you breed out this out of a human, right? Like
No,
so
I don't think the that's an option. I don't think the breeding out is even an option. You know what I mean? Like I don't. So that's not. First of all,
well
I
if you
think
can't breed it
like
out, how do you breed it
identifying
in?
it. So it's eventually. So like I don't know really. Listen, you can breed it in easily, right? Now breeding it out is a little bit different. Breeding it um, is a little bit different because now when you got the freedom, right? Now you have sexual selection that plays a part in that. You know what I'm saying? So like just like me, I like dark skinned black women. So I'm not. It's not gonna. My genetics ain't gonna change much. My son like black women. You know what I'm saying? So chances are my grandson's gonna like black women. You know what I'm saying? You know why? You know why I like black women and my son like black women? Because my granddaddy loved the black women. The blacker you are, the better. Said that motherfucking red water potty dog. It's real warm. I'm going out here to the super fucking brick. But yeah, so like sexual selection plays a part in that also. You know what I'm saying? It's not a cut and dry case of breeding when humans are very complicated people and they do things for different reasons. They do things for unreasonable reasons. So you know what I'm saying? That all factors in. It's not a simple cut dry thing when you're talking about breeding. But the when we were bred, when the slave owners were breeding us, they had a specific reason to be breeding us, right? It wasn't about the sexual selection. It wasn't about our preference and whatever and all the rest of the complicated shit that people do when they have sex and choose to have offspring, right? So I think that's kind of like apples and oranges a little bit, in my opinion.
I don't disagree with you. That's why I feel like it's difficult to make the argument genetically, and culture makes more sense to me. But again, we were trying to get away from external factors, and we got back to them, right? So like we got off of genetics real quickly because I mean, how do we begin to understand that? I don't have
Why
a
is culture an
foundation.
external factor? Why do you consider culture an
Bro,
external factor?
bro, culture has a biology to it too, bro. Culture in your environment, that's a feedback.
Culture has external influences involved with it, and it also changes over time based on your environment. So you wouldn't consider culture 100%. Just if I just left you on this island, you're gonna come up with the same culture every time. Now, if I put you on a different island, you got different circumstances, you'll come up with a new culture.
How long would that take?
Yeah, I don't know.
But no, I'm saying like it's been proven that
And
different
even if
cultures.
you go to a different
Hold on.
island, you would see remnants of that culture from the first island.
Yes, you would. I'm not saying that you wouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm
So
saying
yeah,
with
like
even when we talk about culture, like it, that has a different people from different cultures. Again, look at different. Remember we was talking about questions. Neuroscientists said like different cultures of people use their brains differently for the same visual perceptional task. So even when you talk about culture, that is shit dealing with evolution, bro. What you around, you master your environment, and you create ways to master whatever you're doing, and certain things get passed down. So when you're talking about the brain and different cultures, that's why I was like, the shit tripped me out. You can't get around biology, bro. Whether you talk about culture, whether you talk about anything, because your environment is interacting with you.
I don't know about getting around it, but I'm sure you got to include it. But to what degree is where you
Oh yeah,
will
yeah,
have a
I see what
difference,
you're saying.
right? So,
Yeah, I
yeah.
see
So
what
like I'm not saying it's not involved at all, but to
I
what
think us
degree,
finding
I'm not too sure, right?
the exact percentage of I don't know that that's doing us any good to find the exact percentage what was biological, was environmental, was cultural. I don't think that that's doing us any justice if we figure out, oh, it's 25% environment and it's 75% culture. Like I don't think that's really going to do us any justice, right? I I think what's going to do us justice is to figure out shit like the question I asked, right?
you're
What were we when they were figuring out how to make the fucking swimming pool pump? What the fuck was we figuring out? You see what I'm saying? When they, I think I'm just gonna say it. I'm just gonna say it, right? Because I don't think I'm gonna tease it out. I'm not gonna tease it out of y'all. I've been trying to tease it out of y'all, right? I'm not gonna tease it out, right? Game, right? You ever, because this is what Sheffrin is asking, right? This is. I think I'm gonna answer Sheffrin's question, my question, and a lot of questions with this one, right? Eric, we all got like a lot of us live in a city area, like a more city type area, right? And you go like sometimes I got a lot of my family. My grandfather was from Sardis, Mississippi, right? when I go back to Sardis, I went to Sardis last year. And when I talk to like my cousins and my uncles and shit, right? Like my level, I have to kind of dumb my conversation down a little bit, right? And it's not to insult them or anything. I know a lot of people might wince at that, right? But I guess the truth always makes everybody wince, I guess, right? But you'd have to dumb your conversation down, and I thought about it, and the reason is because the reason why I have to dumb my conversation down a bit is because I'm a lot more well socialized than them. I'm a lot more well traveled than them, right? So when it come, if it came down to the point where I needed to run some game on them, or I decided I wanted to trick them or run game on them, it would be a lot easier for me to run game on them than somebody in my hometown. Why? Because in the town that they from, I think it's like 4,000 or 5,000 people in the town that they from. Right? And the town that I'm from is 200,000 people. You see what I'm saying? And I think what's happening is we've been outgained, right? You ever? Some of y'all might have a cousin that come up from Detroit. You know, like some of y'all might live out in Florida or something, right? And you see your cousin that comes out to Florida. He from Detroit, like the shit he say, the way he do. You know what I'm saying? The way he walk. All of that's game. All of that shit. It's game because and even like the women see it, right? The women start to be attracted to him because of his savviness and his game. His vocabulary is broad. He used these words that are not commonly used in a small town that you from and shit like that. You know what I'm saying? That I think that is what happened. At least on a global scale, at least to West and Central Africans. Like I said, it goes back to the conversation where I talked about being world, right? You know how much game is being ran in that Mediterranean? You know, y'all got to think about it, bro. In ancient times, the Mediterranean was the center of the world. Again, in ancient times, the Mediterranean was the center of the world, bro, right? So how much game is being traded and exchanged and found out and refined and came back better, and this one figured it out, and this one know how to do it a little bit better, and this one then caught on to it, and now they don't do that no more because everybody know that game. And that wasn't all of that game being exchanged was not being exchanged in West and Central Africa. Now, that doesn't go for me to say there was no game being ran or exchanged in West and Central Africa, but it's like it's like Sardis. It's like Sardis, Mississippi. It's the population is only 2,000 motherfuckers, right? Or even if the population is way higher than the population in the Mediterranean, it's only a certain amount of exchange that can go on because everybody's in the same region. Nobody's moving around that much. You know what I mean? In the Mediterranean, you got motherfuckers bringing Chinese goods. You see what I'm saying? And all the way from India, you got Indian spices coming up to the Mediterranean. You know what I'm saying? And all kinds of ideas and interactions and shit like that. So what I'm saying is, I think that's what happened. I think that's the issue. That's why we're in the place where we're in the place because we wasn't game savvy. And even now we still ain't game savvy. Look at Xi. Look at Xi, Putin, and Kim Jong-un. You know what I'm saying? What is they doing when they have these meetings, when they come together, when they go visit each other? It's game being exchanged, information, the exchange of information. You see what I'm saying? That's what makes you savvy. That's what makes you have a leg up. The intel. You see what I'm saying? The game, the the savviness. But I'm gonna stop there, y'all.
That's a heck of a way to look at it, because I think you would still put yourself in a category where you're saying that someone else is capable of doing something that you're not. And I don't believe that. I don't believe that. I believe it boils down to opportunity.
It's not about
And
the capability.
Yeah, he
It's
won't talk about capability.
not about the capability. But go ahead.
let's talk about that part, right? So if you're saying that they had, okay, so if you're calling Africans green, right? Basically, you'd be saying they're green in that moment, right? They would be incapable of deciphering the game, right? That's what makes them green. So that they're not capable of actually defending themselves because they're not savvy enough. That's exactly what you're saying. Am I
Yeah,
missing
no, they're
something,
not
or
savvy. They're
describing it
capable
wrong?
of being savvy. They just are not savvy. They're capable of being savvy. I'm an
So,
African.
so what's
I
stopping
can
them from
I
being
can
savvy then?
I can game the game. I can get the game, right? I
Logic,
just
you
have to be
terrible.
around the game to get it.
What would be stopping them from being savvy? Fetty, what's stopping them from being savvy,
So,
Fetty?
so
I
what's
don't even. I
stopping them
mean,
from
I kind of jumped into it. I heard him say that people from his I guess old neighborhood or old community, certain brothers he run into, they're not as savvy due to them not being, what do you say, dealing with being socialized. Is that what he said? Is that what you said, Corey?
so
I don't
so
want to.
kind of nutshell, right? But what I'm saying is, like, they are capable of being savvy. They have the capability. They do not have the opportunity. You see what I'm saying? The circumstances in which they find themselves in lack opportunities to be as worldly um, as uh, I'm as worldly as those Mediterranean, and as easy as it was. Like, I'm not saying they couldn't have been worldly, right? I think it was just a little easier for those people, those groups in the Mediterranean, to be more game savvy because it's coming from wider range of cultures and people, right? Uh, it's not you though you have a lot of diversity, genetic diversity in West and Central Africa. The culturally is not very diverse. You see what I'm saying? Like you in West and Central Africa, you like most people gonna have kind of similar cultures. You know what I
Mm,
mean? Like you
yeah.
ain't got nobody clear from India bringing spices. You don't have the
Right,
Chinese people coming clear from China all the way over there bringing different information and game and different
Right.
plants and different
And I like the
medicines and
perspective
all
you're
this.
bringing. You're
yeah,
bringing the cultural
but we're going
evolution.
all the
You're
way
bringing the
around the
cultural
world and talking
evolution part.
about game, and they had
Yeah.
gunpowder.
No, the game is what
Certain
the
groups was dealing
so
with
the
navigation,
game.
taxes, all that
Yeah,
shit. Man, I'm gonna just
yeah,
be
that's
real, bro.
all the game is to turn the gunpowder, the Chinese gunpowder, into a Gatling gun. That's the game. That's the
Niggas
culture.
had
That's the
shit like the
savviness.
Silk
That's the
Road.
worldliness.
Confucius was,
That's the
man.
world. Yeah, you can't make a Gatling gun without Chinese gunpowder, right? So you need that. You need some worldliness. You need to be well traveled in order to make gunpowder, to make a Gatling gun. You understand what I'm saying there?
No, I
Logic.
mean, I get what you're saying. I don't necessarily call it game. I'm still calling
Oh,
that
it's game.
opportunity
It is game.
because
No,
I
the
honestly
game,
I
the
feel like
opportunity,
I
opportunity
feel like
allows
Africans. No, I feel like if that's the way I'm summarizing, right? I feel like Africans were running that game on each other for thousands of years uninterrupted, and then they ran into someone who had a technological advantage. That's what I'm more so attributing to, right? Because I feel like in the way I'm describing it, I'm saying that anybody who had that technological advantage would have done the same thing, especially at that time. You know what I'm saying? So that's why I feel like to
you gain a
say,
technological advantage without being worldly.
uh,
And geography and evolution plays a part into that, bro. Barriers and shit, biomes, where you from, like where your ancestral population from, who they interacted with, like all that shit
well, I mean,
matter, bro.
I get what you mean. I get what you mean by that, but I don't think that applies to all cases, right? Like when people were coming out the Stone Age and other people had like metals, like that, they were just the technology. It was there, and that could have you could have attributed that to their relationship to other people, but it would boil down to the technology that they had. Because not that the people in Stone didn't have relationships to the other people, they might have had relationships to the wrong people. You get what
Right.
I'm saying? So
But you know, a logic. You know, we were colonizers though. Like that same shit you talking about when Bantus, when our ancestors learned agriculture and expanded, bro, we ran down on the indigenous hunter gatherers that was in Central Africa, and we expanded intercontinentally, like inside the continent, like very
right.
vast, and we
That's
colonized them
that's what I'm
motherfuckers.
saying. So we given the same opportunity, we would have done something similar.
Yeah, but
We
we
we,
just
we
prepared for
just we weren't by the
due to their
yeah by
evolution
that
and
time.
culture. Yeah.
Yeah, by that time they had spent their time wherever they spent it, just so happenstance, and then they run back into us, and we're like 100 years or so behind them, and they take advantage of it.
I don't agree with that statement that the Bantus were colonizers. That as soon as they learned agriculture, they ran down into other. Because the population of Africa was different at that time. The human population during the Bantu expansion was totally different than it was because hunter-gatherer groups were oftentimes small groups. They didn't, they didn't.
They have a 3,000 year continuation of like they still in the Congo, they cannibalize, they still oppress pygmies to this day. And you got campaigns in Africa like justice for pygmies. Look it up. But I see what you're saying. It was different back then in Africa.
Listen,
Like it was
listen.
different, but in Central Africa, it was nothing but Central
All
African
right, all
foragers.
right. You're talking about how was the pygmies viewed by the African? Because you make a statement a while ago,
Yes,
and
the
the
Bantu expansion
no,
due to us
that,
having a better technology and using those
yeah,
people
but it
for
wasn't
our
colonization.
gain. And
It wasn't colonization. You're using
okay,
European definition.
I've heard Africans. Again, you can't tell. I mean, you can disagree, but disagree with those Africans as well who say the same thing that they of course colonizing. You can make different comparisons to say that the form of colonization that other groups did later in times. Of course, I'm not making that blanket of a statement. But when you're talking about taking over a group and making those people do what you want to do, and you're kind of altering their way of life as a result of you feeling like you're more superior than them. Yes, bro, that's how we felt, bro. Our ancestors. That's how I answer.
That means if we use that, then if you use that terminology for colonization, you're going to use the same terminology for Homo sapiens. That Homo sapiens were colonizers when they expanded out of Africa and went into those lands that were controlled by other human beings. Are you saying that also? Hello? Are you saying that Europeans were colonizers also? That the Homo sapiens were colonizers? Because since we're throwing around the word colonizers and colonization, it's totally different than what happened. I'm not having the same argument that we had with Jim Crow for colonization. I wouldn't use that word when it comes to African.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Sorry, I got cut off. Hmm. Yeah, bro.
I'm moving around. It's difficult. I'm just glad that we didn't, hopefully, I think that we don't try to discuss this in the genetic form because of the implications, right? Like that would be that state of hopelessness that I believe Chef is actually, uh, you know, talking about. But when we're talking about these differences, that's why uh, I'm trying to stay as strong as I can. And if y'all get me, y'all get me. But if I don't stay there, I think that I'm leaning into hopelessness. So that's why
No,
Hey,
my
Logic, you know what else is unfortunate? It's like when you look at stats, it's like people like most black people who are in messed up environments reproduce at a higher rate than middle class blacks or you know what I'm saying, those that are. So that's looking at stats like that is like damn. And when you make correlations with if you're in a messed up environment more times than not, again, epigenetically, you can probably inherit. I know a lot of brothers who I knew in my life that had shit like schizophrenia that was passed down from their moms. And not saying that's everybody, but when you come from like an environment, the fact that again, groups of people, certain groups reproduce at a higher rate socioeconomically than groups who are in a better, like other groups in that same ethnic group that's in a better circumstance. That's damn, that's kind of crazy. So although people don't want to talk about eugenics and all of that, I agree like that. You playing a dangerous game. But again, culturally, other groups may be more mindful of who they reproduce with and the reason why they reproducing with them. So it's a lot of things that again we can do on our own that culture can bear that may not change everything, but if we just had a higher bar for ourselves when it comes to certain things, why are certain women 16 having 4 kids and they ain't got no bread. They kind of putting their whole bloodline, they future wise, in a fucked up situation where they ain't gonna be able to climb out that hole. Why you got 10, 11 kids if you in Section 8 housing and you not even trying to find a way to get up out that situation? You kind of putting your kids in a fucked up situation. So it's a lot of ways you can have this conversation.
it is, and I'm attempting my best, right? And I'm not the arbiter of truth, but I'm trying to stay within my truth. That's why I'm attempting to head y'all off when I do. But so like the epigenetic conversation that you just had, even that would be right. Like, even that would be social evolution, right? Because our natural selection evolution don't tell us to just naturally how would you say, like uphold certain traits over others, right? Like whatever, basically society tells us that. That's not our genes for the most part.
but honestly, I don't want to be Mr. Pushback today. I want to agree, but I will agree with you that people that the lower socio-economic class in any society sometimes appear to have more children than the class above them. But then you have another class which is above them, which have a lot of children. Example, if we look at the Kennedys, right? If we look at the Kennedys, they're known to have a lot of children. If we look at the Mormons, they're known to have a lot of children. Their culture promote reproduction, but their culture promote reproduction more within a family unit setting. No, it has to do with what your culture promote. Is it a disdain in our culture for women to have 5 different baby fathers? 10 years ago, it wasn't looked at like a disdain. So that is what culture can cause. It's not having a lot of children is sometimes the problem. It's having a lot of children outside of a formal structure. Maybe the
Right.
problem,
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point.
right? Because that is it. But when it comes to the culture, culture is important, yes, but culture is so fickle that when breached by external force, it sometimes crack, it sometimes break, and it sometimes change, and it sometimes absorb outside stimuli or outside intervention. And that is it. And especially young culture, right? Like in the culture now, the longest, like sagging. Sagging is one of the longest thing I've seen in our culture. Normally, our culture would have dismissed sagging after 1 or 2 years. But sagging has been a part of the hip hop culture for the last, what, 20 years? Since 2000, right? So
Yeah.
sometimes your culture will absorb certain things. And when it's not fitting to the culture, or when it's not promoted, or when it's not seen as ideal, the culture casts it off. Because there's many things that we used to do culturally 50 years ago that we don't do now. The other things supersede it. So when people talk about the importance of culture, it's very important, yes. But if it's not rooted, if it don't have a concrete foundation, sometimes it's cast aside. And if it's like a weed, sometimes it gain roots and become
Hey,
normalized.
Stu Peace, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So, and again, I'm not really the type to compare groups and cultures, right? But if you ask and say a group, me as an African American and others who are African Americans, I feel like our culture is like a subset. A majority of it is here in America. You know what I'm saying? So, as a result of that, when you compare groups, right? When I look at Asians, right? And the fact that these, because again, I've been studying and reading, watching a lot of documentaries dealing with Asians and how they value Confucianism, and even how like way back, like even I think 2,000 years ago, in certain dynasties, they conducted shit like imperial exams. How the fuck do you compete with a people that has that long of a cultural continuation that promotes things like education and things like that, tiger moms, and you know them being extra competitive in education with little kids, and how like they just a number, and until they stand out in a classroom, that's when they're a somebody. You feel what I'm saying? How do you compete? How?
All right. The unfair thing about our culture, and I would call African American culture our culture, although I'm not African American, because my culture is highly influenced by it. But the other cultures, when they want to be European culture, is that they maintain because they have something to look back on. So when they begin to stray too far or to take on too much of other cultures, they have a comparison that put them back into a straight line. Meaning, so the Chinese in America, when he begins to stray from his original culture too far, he has a comparison. I mean, he can look back upon China, which is culture still exists, and kind of right the ship. With us in the new world, when we look back, we are told that why do you want to look back upon an African culture? These booty scratchers, these primitive people, these people with fly on the face, these people who don't have soap, who don't bathe. We have 1,000 negative connotations in our mind. So we never look back at that culture because it was always deemed less than the culture, the primary culture that we exist in. While other cultures, when they begin to stray, they have the primary culture to look back on. You understand what I'm saying? That they have
Yeah,
that,
yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah.
but we never have that. So therefore, we are children teaching children. You understand? The Bible tells us, say, in the latter days, children will be having children. If we want to use religion, we are now children teaching children. Children in the sense that we developed our own culture and we're teaching ourselves our culture. So we will grasp from other organizations and other people in order to strengthen this culture. But it's a new culture because we're not looking to Africa. And we don't want to look too much to the European, and we don't want to look too much to the Chinese because we want a sense of self. And that is the new culture that we form now. And
So what
that
you're
with that
saying, so what
culture,
you're saying is that, because I agree, certain cultures can absorb toxic things. Like I think again, like drill music, a lot of shit like YN culture and young black women wearing ski masks looking like they ready to rob something is like a fashion. I think a lot of little subtle stuff like that, like you said, a culture can absorb it, but if you have nothing to look back on, how the fuck do you cleanse or refine that culture, or are we just witnessing our culture in real time and we really can't do nothing about it on a mass
no,
scale? Individually, it's a lot of black people I know who say, I don't like saying the N-word, I don't like
mhm.
this music. It's a lot of individuals I know like that, but if a culture is echoing a certain sect of the African American community that's more than likely low socioeconomically, then how do you fix that?
No, because over time, mature individuals or certain individuals start to dominate the culture. And you're hoping that those individuals who dominate the cultures are those individuals which can be a guiding light. Think about it. Suits in Chicago, black men wearing suits. That was part of the NOI culture. And it was predominant in certain areas because that image was portrayed as one of success. So a black man wearing a suit in Chicago during the NOI AD have a sense of pride because he took the NOI pride with him when he put on a suit. He felt good. He felt like the leadership. When he now dressed the way he dressed hip hop style, he's dressing because he portrayed that individual as somebody who he wants to be. But culture has a sense to write itself over time, but it takes time before it sets an individual become who they want to be and the culture become what it wants to portray. It's always going to be internal cultural clashes. It happens in every culture. When they want to be the skinheads in Germany or the skinheads in England, they took on that as part of the culture. But over time, it was frowned upon, and those people was relegated to certain section of society. Over time in our culture, people like now will begin to relegate certain behavior instances and formalize the culture. It's just that it is young, it is children teaching children. But once you have enough adults to guide the children in the culture will formulate and set itself. But it takes time. People say, oh, but we have been here for 400 years. Not really. Not really as a whole, as a system, as a people. It was 200 of those years were separation, was plantation, was plantocracy.
Well, Stu Peace, based off what you're saying, that will automatically make us collectivists then. Because if you saying that we need a person that gets through the weed, makes it out, and now he can be an inspiration for the African American, community at large, you're putting a certain responsibility on quote unquote the 10%, quote unquote, of black people who have power to really make change. So that means we would have to hold black people who hold certain high positions now accountable because they're fucking up their possible influence they can have on people who they can inspire to get shit done. So
Hey,
that
hey,
so
but
that would
100%.
make us,
Fetty, hey, Fetty,
100%.
can you hear
That
me?
yeah,
Can you hear me, Fetty?
yeah, I get you.
I think we may be making a mistake here. We may be mistaking a fad for a culture. I think when y'all talk about like the ski mask and the drill music and all that, I think that's just a fad for right now, right? I don't think that's African American culture per se. You know what I'm saying?
I think it's hip hop. Like you said, it's not fully hip hop, but most of it stems from rap culture that promotes killing and fashion. Like you say, it's not really black culture. because a lot of the white boys who got two parents in the house and got a good circumstance, they're the ones who's doing that the most too. So I agree with that, but it does stem from music, black music. You know what I mean?
And I do agree with you that music influence culture and culture influence music, because earlier something said something that in the 70s things changed, where the music changed and people change with the music, right? And people change the music. That's a dynamic thing about culture, is that it's a chicken and egg story. Who come first, the chicken or the egg? And we can debate that till the cows come home, right? We can debate that till the cows come home, but the chicken will influence the egg, and the
Well,
egg
that's
tell
not really a debate. The egg came first. But,
no, the chicken came first. It's always been a chicken. You realize it?
so something that
Yeah,
wasn't
yeah. You
something
you
that
need
wasn't
something
a
to lay the
chicken.
egg.
Something that wasn't a chicken gave birth to that egg that then became a chicken.
No, but if we believe in evolution, the chicken has to come first, because you always look like a parent before you. If we go back to 100 generations, the change has always been very, 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 very gradual. So if you believe in evolution, the chicken came first.
That's a trick. Yeah, but
Yeah, yeah,
I
but
think
that's it with the
hold it.
culture.
I've been thinking while I was over here on mute. I don't know if y'all gotten away from this part of the conversation, but wouldn't you need like a corresponding time frame, right? The time frame that it took a wolf to become a dog, like wouldn't you need at least that sort of time frame when you're talking about breeding in human terms? Or you saying that our evolution would be faster? Because you could still see dogs that are aggressive. You still see dogs howl at the moon. You know what I'm saying? They don't fully act like wolves, but even there you didn't completely breed the wolf out of the dog.
No, because we call them dogs, but they're actually still wolves. Not because we domesticated them, not because they're smaller, not because we change their breeding. They're still wolves. And if we reverse it, we can still probably get back a wolf out of a dog. It might take generations also, but him still is a wolf. We just
Mhm.
call him a dog. Not because we call him a dog, not because we bred those less wolf-like physiotypical dogs to look a certain way, physiotypical animals to look a certain way. He's still a wolf. He's still a wolf that we have changed to look a certain way and call it a dog, right?
Mhm.
And the same thing in
Right.
society. If
Right. So
we can,
my point would be in whether you're looking at it culturally or whether you're looking at it genetically. Like you were saying before, it's volatile and it's always subjective to external influence. You know what I'm saying? You'll never be
beautiful,
completely removed.
beautiful is that the dog exists because of external influences. If there was no external external influences, we wouldn't have anything that we call dog. So therefore, you
Right.
can never take the external out of the equation. We exist
Yeah.
as how we exist now in America because of external influences. Some may be favorable and others may be unfavorable. You can't have favorable external
Well,
influence, but we
right.
exist how we exist.
So since we're starting to agree on a lot of stuff, right? So how does that relate to what Chef was talking about when you're talking about when he was talking about how it relates to like the gap between us, right? Like so if we have to understand that first off it would take a while, and of course it would be due to external factors for us to completely change like that. Like so if we're not contributing there, and we're trying not to make it all external, so like what are we saying? Are we starting to narrow it down? Or we're
No,
still like super broad.
I don't disagree with what Chef said. I understand where Chef is coming from. But if Chef add external influence and time to his situation, he'll realize that we're not doing too bad. If for want of a better word, is that if we didn't have those external influences, we
Right,
could
we'd
probably
be
be
fine.
where
Yeah.
we desire.
That's kind of how I see it too, Steve.
Right? And even in this situation, if given time, because we have navigated in an environment that is unfavorable to us. And the more we navigate in this environment that is unfavorable to us, the more we're making strides.
You
Imagine,
can make a biological
No,
argument for resilience. Resilience is a real thing when you're talking about like again being put in a stressful environment and
right?
being able to not only cope with it but to master that environment. It's a lot of so it's a double-edged sword. Like it be
well,
a double-edged sword
well,
with a lot of shit dealing with nature and biology. Like the same thing that can fuck you up as far as oppression on the biological scale. The same thing that can make you resilient to where if another group on a mass scale was to probably go through the same thing you did or another group did.
That's why we can use that argument for the whole Trump situation. That's why black people not hollering over Trump. Because we have developed a level of resilience that show that this too shall pass. But when white people start facing the cut to social security and the cut to all of those farm aids, you realize that they're not surviving. They're talking suicide and farm loss and all of these things because they weren't exposed to these stimulus that cause the development of resilience, as you put it. So, in spite of all of that, we have developed a resilience and we are trying to strive in an environment that is not the most favorable. But if you compare it to other people, it looks like we're not doing well. But other people have never existed in this environment for so long a period.
Hey, Logic, I made this analogy. We live in life on all Madden. If you had to make like a Madden analogy or a 2K analogy, we live in life on Hall of Fame and other groups living on, you know what I mean? All pro.
I can't wholeheartedly disagree with that. We got a lot of obstacles in our way. The computer be doing
Oh,
stuff
so
that look
look,
inhuman at
y'all
times.
said
They
what
do.
I and y'all said what I said earlier, bro. So we we on the truck.
You breaking up, bro. Come in and come out, bro.
You started out good and then it started breaking up. Because I
Am I
think
good
Chef
now?
made.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you're good
go
now.
ahead.
Go ahead quick before we break up.
I was just saying that we're savvy with the struggle. We're more savvy with struggling than other groups are. You see what I'm saying? We know how to make the chitlins we know how to take the chitlins and the neck bones and make them into a delicacy.
And the
Go
oxtail,
ahead.
and the cow foot, and the chicken foot. Because we
Yeah,
have been
that's
to
yeah.
stress us.
We've definitely made a way of life out of that. That's a hell of a
No,
statement. But that's
we have
true. We've made a way of life out of adversity. We
in
have.
spite of that, not because of that, in spite of that, we have taken the worst and made the best.
No, you can't buy oxtail. You can't buy oxtail. Oxtail is like $13 a pound. And 50 years ago, oxtail was throwaway meat. We did that.
Hey, I
But
went
remember,
to
so Steph said something I thought was super interesting. Go ahead.
three oxtails.
Go ahead while you there.
$5 three of them. Stupid. $25 for three oxtails.
Yeah, you go to the restaurant now, they give you 3 pieces, 3 small pieces, and it's $25. We turned oxtail into caviar. So in spite of we develop a resilience. It might not be the best when it compared to other groups, but guess what? With what we were given,
We've done a lot. We've done a lot with what we've been getting. Yeah, we have. Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, can y'all speak to this? And I don't want to misquote Chef. He got upset about that earlier. I ain't doing it on purpose, but if I'm not mistaken, he was kind of sounded a little overwhelmed by the efficiency, right, that some of these games are being played, and he almost started to allude to like the potential genius that would be necessary to pull it all off. Right now, again, if I'm getting it wrong, the brother can get off, you come off mute and say and correct me. But if I'm not mistaken, that's what I think I heard. Right. So based on everything that we concluded, would y'all still phrase it that way? Would you consider this the product of like evil genius, or is it something else?
No, he was just making a causality argument. Now listen, if this is true, if this is what he said, that if this what I'm saying is true, that it means that those people, either one is more intelligent than us, or two is more savvy, or three is more cunning. Right? He was just trying to relate it out. How is this possible that we allow other people to come into our society and decimate our culture, to belittle us and demean us and to turn us into less than, and we can't see it coming from a mile? He said that we should be able to see it coming from a mile. Just like how I said that I can't trust a man who was in a cult because he should be able to see it coming from a mile. But these 3 card Monty have set up the table using Corey. They set up the table and they have been playing this game for millennium.
Millennium, right? It didn't start in America. See you saying what I'm saying, Stoopies. I'm saying that there's a techniques that have been built upon, maybe not like initially well documented, but ultimately fall under the umbrella of social engineering. Like that's where that, and that's kind of what I'm been saying. Like it didn't start here. This is a continuation of what humans been doing. Now, this might even be a perfection, an ironic perfection to some weird degree of what humans been doing.
Yeah.
That's how I feel.
Yeah, but I am afraid of you. I'm afraid of going in that direction. And the reason why I'm afraid of going in that direction is that now it become, is it environmental or biological? And if we say environmental, we can argue that, but we have been living in our own areas for 100 years, 1,000 years. Why not? We're on the level of there. And if we say it is biological, then we get down to Francis Cress Wilson Road. It's an argument that has been that was happened 50 years ago. When you sit down with the Rastas, they were having this argument. Is it that these people different somehow? When you look in history, that every time them come in contact with another society's decimation, is it biological or environmental? Is it something intrinsic in them to decimate other people? Do they carry the Iceman gene? It's a dangerous question to have.
It's a dangerous question. It
Yeah.
definitely is. It's so many implications behind it. If you say yes, now you got to talk about, you got to talk about the differences under the microscope and how it affects behavior and how you limited in certain ways.
Right.
It's a whole can of worms.
Right. Right. Even something that stirs us enough is the athletic question. The athletic question. That's also a dangerous question to have. Biologically, are we superior to them as athletes?
Actually, Actually, I feel like that was for me when and ChatGPT explained it. So in I could be in there could be some correction necessary in there, but the way ChatGPT described it is that you would attribute that the same way you would attribute to like um, regional specific illness, right? Like those your quick muscle fibers were beneficial to your environment, low oxygen, what have you. It still would be a product based on what region that you grew up in. That would be why you would see concentrations of those quick muscle fibers in West Africa as opposed to somewhere else. So that got me out of even you could even being the athleticism not being like a dividing line, right? Because it still said that no, environment is even what causes the genes to express themselves in this way. So that took me out of that too. So I couldn't just use athleticism. Oh, we're just different.
Right, but ChatGPT is not going to explain to you that they can use it as intelligent. That because they grew up in a scarce environment, that food was only readily available 6 months out of the year, they had to use their intelligence to manage these scarce resources. The same argument can be made elsewise. So those genes were people who survived, passed on the most intelligent genes to their children. That can be argued either way. That's why it's a dangerous argument. You have to look at the argument from both sides and you realize, no.
No, so what it said was is that basically there are some genes, few genes where you would say are specific to this region or people group, right? But it's very few of them. And the way genes work is that one specific gene doesn't isn't like wholly responsible for one thing, right? Like a lot of things are the product of multiple genes working
Right.
together.
They add them all up. Right. It's like
Right. So
zeros and
so
ones.
even if you can find a specific gene in this group that's not in the other group, because
I
of
won't,
how genes work, it doesn't automatically mean, hey, these group of people don't have empathy because they don't have, you know what I'm saying? It doesn't work.
Yeah, that's why group data is tricky and you can't make individual assumptions based off of it. You know what I mean? That's why like you gotta be real careful on like having stereotypes based off group data because it kinda goes against to what it's actually measuring. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
no, but when we look at that, right? Because all human beings have all the same genes. When we talk about the fast twitch muscle genes and all of that, it's a misnomer. When they say, oh, they have the fast twitch muscle gene. White people have the fast twitch muscle genes also. Chinese have it.
Mhm.
Everybody have it. But it might be expressed more in some cultures. But they
Do you
have
do
it.
you think do you think the result of the mosquito though and like malaria and sickle cell again like you can find frequencies within all groups but you like you said you may find groups with higher frequencies of a particular thing so a lot of people say this isn't the 100% cause but when you talk about like fast twitch muscles and all of that some people make an evolutionary argument dealing with like what is it the mosquito and certain people in certain regions
Malaria and sickle cell. They use
uh,
the association of mosquito with malaria. Malaria is a mosquito spreading disease, and it sickle cell is they claim that sickle cell is a biological response to the malaria vaccine.
But
But
even the East Africans, like we can say they're superior in long distance running as a result of evolution in their environment and they genes interacting with one another as a result of them living at high altitude and shit like that. That you know what I mean? We like it'll be problematic to say they're superior in long distance running, but I mean the Olympics can give you a good idea of a lot of shit but you can't use that to label an entire ethnic group, nation, or whatever. But you can kind of see the outliers, like a bell curve. It measures like the outliers of groups, and certain groups may have more extremes than others. That doesn't mean that a white person can't jump. That don't mean that you know what I mean. A black person can't swim. That's not what it's saying. That's not what the group data is saying. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because let me break it down or I think about it, why I dismiss most of the genes argument. Is that when we look at situation, the most elite within a population compete. But they tend to use the most elite, like Corey now, two Corey darker than me, Corey better than me. So when Corey go in a room and there's a dark skinned Corey come in the room, all the light skinned Negroes, all the yellow Negroes are going to be afraid that Corey is going to eat them up because the misnomer that is spread. But Corey is an elite dark skinned Negro. Right? 90% of dark skinned Negro are not elite. But the ride and the interpretation that dark skinned Negroes are elite. And they're proud to wear that cap. When 90% of them is bullshit. 90%
Yeah.
of them could have fight, right? But we use that, we use the elite in Kenya, and they mostly come from one area in Kenya, these long distance runners who live on the hill, right?
Mm-hmm.
To pass it down like, oh, these genes were developed. No, you're using the elite. Half of Kenya is slow. You use Usain Bolt to evaluate all of Jamaica. And Shelley and Fraser. When 99.9999% of Jamaicans cannot run. And that's a dangerous thing about saying that these genes come forward because of XYZ or this malaria, this comparison. When you look at the real raw data, in, it's a,
Yeah. Nobody's saying it's 100%. It could be a 10% cause or 20% cause, but like people are like again, bro. Look, my bad to cut you. An article just came out not too long ago talking about Jews, Ashkenazi, and how the same brain they get more brain disorders than other groups of people, and it's very fatal. But at that same token, the fact they get certain brain disorders, they showed that that same thing gives them higher neural connectivity as a result of that, and it's a tricky conversation to have.
but guess what? That don't relate it to another causation or that either. Ashkenazi Jews get more brain tumor. Somebody I could argue that Ashkenazi Jews get more brain tumor because if you look at the genes, it has higher relationship within the group than many groups.
Well, what
Which
about
is not
Asians? Asians have a Asian flush. 50% of Asians really can't drink alcohol, and it's a result of their ancestors.
don't what I would research. Could Kublai Khan drink alcohol?
Yeah, it's called Asian flush. Look it up.
Yeah, no. But could Kublai Khan drink alcohol? Because if we go back in history, we realize that 40% of Asian are directly related to who?
You talking about
Kublai Khan.
Genghis Khan?
Genghis Khan, right? Or Kublai or whatever Khan. They're
Yep.
related to the Khans. But nobody talk about that. Or Pakistani now having 50% inbred because they have a culture of cousin marrying cousin. So anything in the future, somebody going to say, oh, Pakistanis are good in cricket because they have that. Is it because they married each other? Because cousin marrying cousin.
You talk about causation. It's a fact that Asians have better visual-spatial skills than everybody else on the planet on a group level. That's just a fact. So I mean, it's
Yeah, but these advantages, when we play them out and we look at it and we look at these advantages, especially for intelligence, for those favorable advantages that we love. Because we celebrate the ones that we love, and we tend to dismiss the ones that we don't like. We find other reasons for them, right?
yeah, I agree with
And
that.
that's the dangerous thing about genetics. And when people play
But
the
but but
genetics,
Stu, people do that in the black community. If we snapped our fingers and all races and groups went away and there was nothing but black people, how do you think we would establish hierarchy or whatever? It'll be a lot of that shit is based off genetics. Whether a person is smart, whether a motherfucker tall. Bro, I seen motherfuckers in the hood who just tall and niggas like that's a benefit. If you 6'5" walking around, niggas ain't gonna try you. And that's based strictly based off genetics. So I'm saying if you leave one group on the planet and it's just them, it's still going to be inequality, bro. Based off a lot of shit that the person didn't choose to be born with. That's just a fact.
yeah, Does that make him better? Does the 6'5" Negro, is the 6'5" Negro better than the 5'3" Negro?
No, but it's still like a genetic lottery at play to where that person's
Right.
life, that like they just they may have an easier road path as a result of shit that they had no bearing in picking. It's just they was just born with it. You know what I mean? Like pretty privilege. You know how many women out here who are born to, it's very attractive, and they use that to their benefit, and it helps them go up in society.
That is true. And that's a conversation that needs to be had also. Because think about it. If Kevin, if KD, if KD is smart, he's athletic, he's 7 foot tall. He would only look to breed with tall bitches from the WNBA who's also athletic and at least 6'9" tall, and
Yeah,
have his whole stable full of Wemby.
yeah.
Have his whole stable full of Wemby. And promote what do you call it now? Generational wealth. And all of these WNBA players, if Kevin Garnett or Kevin Durant go to any WNBA player now and say, listen, I'm 7 foot tall, you're 6'8", you're athletic, I'm athletic. Let's have a baby together. I'm not giving you $1, but you'll have a Wemby. Wemby mother is 6'5". His father, she played basketball. His father long jump. He's 6'11", and now they have a 7'6" athletic juggernaut. If we're talking about that kind of selection, no.
Yeah, athletes practice eugenics all the time.
Right. Right. They do.
They
They
want a
do.
desirable trait, and they get it.
I call it sexual selection, not eugenics, just sexual selection.
Right. But I heard an evolutionary biologist explain, like, the lecture was called "Why All Eugenics Isn't Bad and Why You May Support It More Than You Think." You know what I mean? Like certain people, like no, I'm saying the idea of eugenics again. Like if you see a woman and you want a desirable trait, you find her intelligent, and you want your offspring to be intelligent. We think that because a certain individual or certain groups used eugenics in a way that was irresponsible, we attach the entire thing to those people. And yes, it's used irresponsibly by most people, but the idea of wanting a desirable trait, we realize that we kind of adopt those kind of mini philosophies in our everyday life without whether we know it or
not. You shouldn't be finding the lady laying under the bridge drunk to have a baby with. Right? You want to find that college educated, healthy, young lady to childbearing young lady to have your offspring with. You don't want some frail, drunk, drug addict the laying under the bridge. Like that's not what you're not gonna choose that as to have your offspring with.
Man, you come from the same community as me. You don't remember the term butterhead? You don't remember the term butterhead, Corey? That came from your era, I think. A butterhead, a joint that's fine as hell, and you can rap, you can do whatever, and she gonna stay no matter what. Come on, bro. You ain't got to be a bum under the bridge.
We call it a butter face. We call it a butter face, not a
generation.
Butter face.
My generation was
good
butter face. Yeah.
Butterface was a joint with an ugly face and a fat ass. I'm bugging.
Everything on her body
like
was
a dingbat, not a dingbat. I forgot the term. It was a joint that was dumb, but she was bad. I forgot the term.
A dumb bitch.
Well, I always tell my wife if she was a white girl, she'd be blind. But go ahead.
Yeah. Hey, but real quick, hold on. I can't yell. That's also, but we also got to take into account when these two. First off, good afternoon. You also have to take into account when these athletes are quote unquote breeding with each other. Most of their children are trash athletes. They might be very athletic, but it don't usually work out. You can't make up for the fact that this athlete is well off, can get them the best training, can get them the best whatever, but it don't necessarily mean to be athletic. Y'all talking about sexual selection, but I don't think I think economic selection is better than any breeding that you could possibly do, because that's what's held most people marginalized groups down this entire time, is people breeding and breeding financially, breeding connections, breeding networks that you can never get into because they won't breed with you. The Jack and Jills, the
Why you
things
see
like that.
them thick ass, fine ass volleyball white girls, and they with that little skinny ass nerd? She doing just what Brass is talking about.
Yeah,
You know
economic
what I mean?
collection. This is so I think while we keep saying maybe we need to do this and we need to do that, we probably need to do a little bit more of that talented tenth along with all of this hard work.
That
And
requires a
I
person to
think
think a certain way, though. That, like, economics, that's a byproduct of you having a proper framework to even implement that. So
not necessarily. It
to
don't
tell
the
a people,
person.
yo, we should have
That
financial
could be
literacy.
that
Hold
could
on,
be your
I cannot
culture
yell.
telling you.
I cannot yell, bro. Give me a second. I'm just
Okay.
saying, a lot of times it ain't the person making the decision. A lot of times in those cases, I was in Jack and Jill. You get told what to do, and you don't have no fucking say in what you're doing, and then you fucking just deal with it, and then you do the same to your kids. Don't think that these people, they definitely want to fuck with the butterface and the butterheads, all of that, but they dad sort of told them, "You, this is who it's gonna be. It's gonna be in and around this little area." And that's that. So it ain't really a personal choice. Y'all talk, not y'all, but these conversations happen a lot. Personal choice of why one race does this, why one race does the other. Some of these conversations that y'all don't hear in these homes are, "I'll disown your ass if you keep fucking around with dude from the block." And then that girl makes the decision as to whether she wants to go. Some of them white trash people, or some of them people that end up economically disadvantaged, a lot of times that's just a choice they made. You know what I mean? Like it's not always they made an intelligent decision or this, that, and the other. Matter of fact, Fetty, you know exactly what I'm talking about, because if you follow social media like I think you do, did you see the conversation between Kanye and Amber Rose this weekend? Funniest conversation ever. She said she was down for him. She messaged. She said, "I'm down for you, and I never would have left you, and gave you head whenever I wanted, whenever you wanted. You left me for another girl, and this, that, and the other." And then all he said in a polite catback, amongst other things, was, "Yeah, but I found a billionaire that would do the same thing that you would do. And now my kids are set for life, no matter what happens to me." So sometimes economically, if he would have went and found somebody creative to go make better music, it might not have worked out. But his kids are now Kim Kardashian or Kardashians, set for generations. So maybe thinking like that would
I
do us
think. Do you think
a little bit
college
more
is like
service.
the? I mean, to use a lack of a better word, do you think that college is kind of like the breeding grounds for shit like that?
I think it's the worst place to do it, but it is. I think the most of the people, from what I understand about Jack and Jack and Jill, I know I'm not going to be on here long. What I understand about Jack and Jill, they get you early. That kind of quote unquote breeding, that kind of stuff has to happen early, and it isn't just the Jack and Jill; it's all the other groups you're in. Like all the different areas, and a lot of your life is manicured. Your parents take you everywhere. You see them parents that they got your whole day planned from 10 o'clock on a Saturday. You're not just sitting in the house. You're going here, you're going there, you're doing this, you're doing that. So it's not, by the time you get to college is where probably a lot of the breeding messes up. If you've been to college, you realize, like, you get so many random trysts that you don't there isn't, it's everybody's breeding. We know there's breeding going on, but it ain't very selective.
No. I was saying, like, again, I knew a lot of brothers who came from a certain environment, and when they were in college, they was mindful of, yeah, I got this rich joint, her parents is rich, and all of that. So I remember them type of conversations. That's why I asked.
Yeah, but they would never. But when we're talking about breeding, um, we're talking about life. Like, you could have a rich what's the name, but trust and believe that rich what's the name's parents will pull that rich girl out of school
Okay,
if
I
she
see what
figured
you're
out
saying.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like we're
I meant
talking
to say
about
like the
life.
precursors, like
Yeah,
who you may eventually, a lot of
yeah, the
people you may
mindset.
know
Yeah, the
networking
mindset.
with.
Yeah, I tried it when I was in school. I tried when I was in high school. I already began to kind of see um uh the that's how I realized that most of the rich kids, they're messed up. Like they're really messed up. They don't have like an idea of what they're more emotional than everybody else. They seem that their mental health is lacking. Um and I would start looking at stuff like that in high school. But I got married very early in the game. So it's not I understand put it like this, I just understand those pressures. I do understand those pressures.
I have two stories for you. I have two stories. They're going to be quick. Two stories. Number one, I have a brother, real bad man, right? His girlfriend, when he just left high school, he met this girl. She lived on top of the hill, basketball court, tennis court, everything in our house. And the first time she introduced my the first time she introduced my brother to her father, the next week she was at university in England. She was going to university in Jamaica. And he pulled her out and sent her to university in England. They're not putting up with the bullshit in terms of um, economic selection. You could look good, you could tall, you could strong, you could handsome. Economic selection for rich people is an important part of the lifestyle. The second story is this. A couple of years ago, I was doing a course in Broward College. And what I'm realizing is that other races playing the same game, especially the middle class ones. I'm not talking about the rich ones now. I'm talking about the working class, white girl from a working class family, or Spanish girl from a working class family. They're selecting all of the black boys from college. All of the black boys. They're not playing with them. Is that they act them like wow, because they're playing the selection game. These ambitious black men, they're going to take them in the group. They're playing an economic selection game, right? So I know my son now just went off to college. He's in Canada studying engineering. The probability of him coming home with a white girl is high. Is high. I would love to tell him that, listen, black girls forever, snow bunnies never. But I'm not going to be able to compete with the Indian, and the other girls who's going to say an ambitious black guy who doing engineering. They're not going to pass it up. And they're not waiting on finished jobs because they are playing the long game. But we want instantaneous results as a black people. So, I have forgiven the Dr. Umar that I want grandchildren that look like me. I don't want a little blonde hair girl come and tell me, say, oh, grandpa, no, you're not mine. Your grandpa on the other side. Because they play the selection game and they play the economic selection game. That's the game that we're losing. That's the game that we're losing because can you listen to a black man with a white wife talking about black culture? It's me as a black man coming to the community now with a blonde hair, blue eyed Becky. And I'm telling Sheffrin, we need as black people to rise, to portray this, to develop this. Nobody not listening to me. Nobody not listening to me. You fetty? You listening to a black man with a blonde hair, blue eyed white wife? Be honest. Right? And that's why I have to agree with Umar on that one point. I might call him a scammer, yes, but Snowman is not doing anything for our culture.
Yeah, that's crazy you say that. That kind of sounds like I watched a documentary dealing with how like groups way back then all kind of echoed the importance of ethnic purity. So it's not really, yeah. So it's not frowned upon for a group to want to promote ethnic purity. You know what I mean, because all groups been doing it for a while.
And is it an economic advantage to import other groups into your culture?
I think so, because you get more ideas, and then you get a larger customer base. Right, so it's like there's two ideas contending there, right? So unless you're saying isolation is the best route, I don't think you're saying that. So like, how do you hold both positions to where, like, yes, you understand inclusion is beneficial, but you would practice exclusion at the same time.
Uh, but logic. What's the standard component of our culture? What should we be
I'm
promoting?
not saying it's wrong. Don't get me saying that I think it's wrong. You're absolutely entitled to have a preference. But I'm saying that there's a bit of conflict there. You know what I'm saying? Like, how can you promote, how can you promote this inclusivity, or understand that the inclusivity is beneficial, and yet promote the exclusivity? You know what I'm saying? Like, I get it, but there's a little bit of a contradiction there.
Yeah, no, I
'Cause I
get
don't
it,
want,
but
I certainly wouldn't want my, when you, that's a vivid image in my head. You get a blonde hair, blue eyed white girl walking up to you talking about, grandpa, can I have, some change, you know what I'm saying? Or whatever. Like, that don't sit well with me either. I get it. I definitely get it.
right? Yeah, because culturally, when we look at the superstars, like the first Jamaican superstar that made leeway in both the Jamaican culture and American culture is Harry Belafonte. Is Harry Belafonte black anymore, seeing that his great grandchildren don't look anywhere like him? Because we live on through our children, right? So if your children and your grandchildren and your great grandchildren is now a dog, is now classified as a dog, does the wolf still exist? The same dog wolf story. The wolf that is Harry Belafonte has now been transformed into a chihuahua. Is that still Harry Belafonte?
I think so. I think we've just relabeled it.
When you look at the Jacksons, the grandchildren, can you still hold affinity to them to say, listen, this is a first family of African American greatness? Or Diana Ross grandchildren? I'm not remember, I started, I don't want anybody to say, oh, Stoopy is Riri. I started out with Harry Belafonte, a Jamaican. Right? I'm just using examples. Culturally, is that us now? Are you saying culturally that is us, Corey? That we are now Diana Ross grandchildren and Harry Belafonte grandchildren, and we're arguing a null point that our culture has assimilated in a greater culture where the offspring and the end result is nothing like those people who fought for emancipation?
Yeah, I don't think it's the genes that have changed. That's I think that's the larger argument. Is like we were saying, is it a different organism? I think I think that we're still circling around that, and that would be just like saying it head on, right? Because if it's not a new organism, well then we should be getting away from the genetic differences. What do you think about that? 'Cause I mean, that's just how I see it. You know what I'm saying? Unless ultimately that's what we're coming to the conclusion of there being two different organisms. I'd say that's where that conversation ends for me. But if you want to make the argument, then we can make the argument. But I think that that's ultimately what you would be arguing.
Culture start with a uniqueness of the individual. Would you agree or disagree with that? I'm trying. I'm thinking it out. I think that your
How do you explain what you mean by that?
that will look a certain way. That would look a certain way. That's what your culture start with. You know,
But with
black,
with
black
people looking a certain way or culture looking a certain way.
with the people within that culture looking a certain way. There's a unique identifier to the people within that culture. And
Mm,
the more the people start looking different, the more fragmented the culture become. Because reproduction and outside influence tend to shatter the culture.
I don't know. I don't know what to say about that. I would assume that there's always been some diversity. I'm guessing, you know what I'm saying, but because if we're talking about our just color differences now, like what do we have a reason to assume that there wasn't variations among populations back then?
Yeah, but
I've never heard that before.
it was within a certain strata. Wife calling me. I forgot back.
That's all good. I think I think that gets me really close to that gets me really close to like a homogenous population. Um, Now I'm thinking that could be problematic because if you're at that point now you're saying the diversity was never real. You know what I'm saying? I don't know about that, and I could be wrong, but that's kind of what it seems like there could be that in there. So I'm more so from the standpoint of individual cultures would set different parameters on what constitutes acceptable behavior, right? Like you can have some cultures, some cultures say that women deserve to be in this particular social status or whatnot. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like that's the culture dictating the particular behavior, not the genes.
No, but wouldn't you agree with it that your culture developed first in a the word in a homogeneous society? That every culture developed in a homogeneous society where everybody look like everybody. Would you agree with that? The foundations of a culture develop in a society where everybody look like everybody. Some might be taller, some might be shorter, but at the root,
Go ahead. I'm following your line of reasoning.
yeah, at the root,
I would so at right. So if we go back that far, are you saying that particular culture was like an equal society for everybody, or were there still?
I'm not saying that it was an equal society, but it was a society that was developed that with less malice because you see yourself in everybody else. So the aim of the culture was to strive for the best of everybody. That everybody would.
Well, then, how did we eventually develop slavery and colonialism?
Because other cultures that see themselves in group dynamics met with other culture, and ex- they believe themselves to be better than that other culture that they interacted with. Because slavery, we don't have any history of people actually enslaving their own. We have different levels within a culture. But the Egyptians weren't really enslaving other Egyptians, if we go all the way back. And if we look at modern time now, if you go to Dubai, the, the upper class, the original people in Dubai, the people who call themselves citizens of Dubai, they don't do the menial work. Right? So within
Okay,
a culture,
so
right?
so
So when
so
we
then
talk,
who built the pyramids? If the Egyptians were enslaving other people, who built the pyramids?
but slaves didn't build the pyramid.
Right,
Let's
it
have
was
this.
Egyptians, right?
Yeah,
They
but they weren't
subjected
slaves.
Egyptians to that.
No, but they weren't
So
slaves.
we might not describe that as slavery, but we certainly wouldn't describe that as desirable work conditions.
No, it's like construction work. No, nobody wants to be out in the sun all day. But it paid, and it gave Egyptians a living. It wasn't slavery. If you go back and look at the history of the pyramids, how they were built, there were
I,
camps put
I,
up, there were medical sites put up, there were feeding stations put up. They were never
I
enslaved. They
think
were
I think I'm seeing the disconnect here, Stu P. So you're saying that society grew out of something that was organically peaceful, more so.
no. I'm saying that society, that not society, that culture within a population, how the population developed the culture originally. It was due to it was a homogeneous population. It was a population with identifiers that everybody within that population identified as a member of that population. There were
Right.
stratas within that population. Yeah? You had rich people, you had poor people, you had hungry people, you had people with a belly full. But they were all the same people who originally started that culture, right? Within that culture, you have different levels, yes? But then those people went outside and meet other people with other cultures. Because if we look at it, and then those people tend not to be the one to brutalize their own people, but they brutalized other people or they indoctrinated other people. Because you don't need to indoctrinate. The Crusaders didn't need to indoctrinate other Crusaders. They were already Crusaders. But when they meet people who weren't crusaders, they identify them as less than because they didn't share the same belief system. Right? So
Yeah. See, I go ahead. I thought you finished.
when your culture is whole, your people, you might somebody might say, what about the Mayan culture? They were sacrificing people by the hundreds. That was agreement among themselves. Many of the first people went to altar being proud of being sacrificed. It's part of the
Right.
culture. It's
Right.
part of their.
I'm waiting till you bring your conclusion. But from what the way I see it is the further you go back, the less regular people are afforded rights almost at all. Unless you go far enough. I'm talking about when you talk about complex societies, right? Where you actually
Right.
have a king, a ruler over a community, right? I'm not talking about you go back as far as hunter gatherers before you have
No.
that sort of community structure. But as soon as you get the community structure, from what I could tell, you immediately have some form of my way or the highway. And that is like the old ways, right? Old ways times that the king.
You're breaking up. Yeah. I'm talking about complex societies because culture exists
Well, the
within
king would be
society.
so powerful that his power would typically extend after death, right? Like he was so powerful that his dominion over life or death continued in his death. That's like a part of the ritual where you would where the people would be sent to the afterlife with the king because he still has dominion over them even in his death. You get what I'm saying? Like
Yeah, yeah,
so when I hear about the old ways, I think about the more barbaric part of society, and it took for us to grow out of it, right? Like that's where we have social evolution, and we realize that we don't have to do all this magic and all the spells, and there's a more humane way of dealing with all of this stuff. So like that's how I see it.
no, but then let's look at it this way. That's a social contract that the members of the society sign with the culture. They agree with it. Because in cultures where
Right.
they don't agree with those rules, the culture rebel. So if you have a culture where there's not many rebellion, that means the people agree with what is going on.
No, but you need a certain level of freedom to rebel, though. Free speech ain't a thing in the old world, right? Am I
No,
tripping? Free speech ain't a thing in the old world.
no, rebellions have always happened in spite of people having less than or less freedom than. And those are the society where when people are not in agree with the cultural norms of the society, those are the society that rebellion takes place more. But in a society where people agree with the cultural norm, when they want to be Martin Luther, the Lutheran Church, who did not agree with the Catholics, he had a rebellion. So rebellions are when people don't agree with cultural norms. That is when it
No, but
occurs.
I'm saying if I'm saying that's Martin Luther, but if Martin Luther were to mount that protest 300 years before that, he's just beheaded. Like you would just never hear his story, and he
Yeah,
don't have the freedom to protest.
no, but if we wanted it, if we want to use Martin Luther speech 400 years before, we can use the Jews in Rome. They were rebelling. That's why they had so many crucifixions on the road to Jerusalem so many times. That when people don't agree with cultural norms, you always have rebellion, right? But when people exist in a whole unity by themselves, you may not have so many rebellion because the norms are classified within a specific group of people. Meaning that if black people, and this is the argument for separation. If black people existed, if African American existed in a state, let's say by themselves, and were allowed to develop their own culture, free of external forces, would some of the problems that we're facing now exist? With some of the problem, high crime or so-called high crime, open and close quotation, gang-related violence, would that still exist? And some people will say no, because they will police themselves better because they will be the one punishing themselves. And if you're
Mm.
punishing yourself, you would have more empathy towards who you're punishing versus when you're in a society now where punishment is out of your hands. So why should you subject your own to external punishment? You understand? Many things. So within a culture, it is affected by external forces severely. If a culture is able
Mm.
to live independently of other culture, and that can't exist. We know that that can't exist. Not in 2025, where communication is totally different. The roads have been, the ship lanes have been mapped out, telephone, telecommunication, email, right? Cultures will always be affected or influenced by external forces because of these levels of communication. But if we had a society where we were not affected by external forces, would we be in a better position? I think that's a question Chef asking.
Right, and I think that that's a complicated question. I think that's it's still a complicated question because I think it's an inherent part of complex society is that you have you have a working class people. You know what I'm saying? That the working class is what seems to like allow you to make money off of it. You get what I'm saying? Like that's just some sort of way built into it. So whether it's us controlling that society, whether it's China doing it, whether it's Ibrahim Traore doing it, like to some degree, that seems to always kind of like play a role. It's still to me seems to be a poor versus rich people thing. Like
Let, let,
that's
me, let, me,
I keep going back to that.
let me give you an analogy. And this analogy is that I had a friend who went to live with his stepmother, and she used to beat all the children. Right? He lived with his mother. His mother used to beat him, but he went to live with his stepmother. His stepmother used to beat him. And I asked him one day, "What's the difference?" And he told me that when his mother beat him, he felt as if it was coming from a place of love. But when his stepmother beat him, he felt like it was coming from a place of hate, that she didn't like him. Now, in our culture, when the beat was self, it's oftentimes represented differently than when other people beat us. And that's the challenges we face. And that's some of the challenges we face when external culture come into our culture and they start to question our accomplishment or they
I need
start
an
to question
example. I need
where
an
we're going.
example of a loving beating. I mean, I'm talking about as a group. How can we lovingly beat ourselves?
No, when I say beating, I mean punishment. I mean, it's not the what we're doing, it's why
No,
we're
no,
doing it.
I'm even like chastise or like I'm trying to figure
Yeah,
out
yeah,
like
yeah,
like
yeah.
so
It's
okay we know that we know what the American government does. So like like where's the parallel now?
right. It's like the why. All right. Remember when the pound cake speech by Bill Cosby? It was a retribution. It was a pull yourself up by the bootstrap. Many persons didn't like the pound cake speech because they didn't understand where it was coming from. Was it coming from a place of love? Was he saying the pound cake speech because he wanted us as black people to be better, or was he just criticizing us as black people? Right?
I get you. Okay, that's a good
Right?
example. That's all I was asking for. So yeah, you'd be talking about maybe like a speech where a black person might say things harshly but be coming from a loving place. I got
Right. But if a white person made that same speech that Bill Cosby made now, how would you take it? You'd more accept it that Bill Cosby is coming from a loving place. But what
you.
if George Bush made
Yeah,
that speech?
you could convince me that he's doing it from a loving place. It'd be a lot easier for you to do that with Bill
Can
Right.
you logic real quick? What's the pound cake speech?
We asking me?
Logic,
Yeah.
I have no idea.
right? So you
Trying to
don't then
get
you don't know
I'm
the
trying to
speech.
let
You
him
don't
get to his point.
no, but if you don't know the speech, you can't get his point. Most people don't know that. That's what I'm trying to figure out. I know you don't know that speech because most people don't know that speech. So the pound cake speech for the audience and you is Bill Cosby did a commencement. I forgot where it is, Morehouse, one of them schools, and it might have been Temple, knowing him, and he did a speech of basically what y'all talking about. It was a black person saying, you know, the parents ain't raising themselves, their kids, the parents ain't doing this, the kids need to be held accountable, black people need to be
Wait, you
held
said,
accountable.
my bad to cut you, Brad. You said Bill Cosby. I saw some shit like that on my feed a couple of days ago.
You know, it was Bill Cosby. This is an old speech though. This is from
Yeah,
like, yeah, this
he
is
was
from a long
sounded like he
time
was
ago.
making a lot of talking points, like you said, that deals with like I guess accountability. But I
Yeah,
didn't watch the whole thing.
but the he was talking about he's talking about Eddie Murphy and how they're promoting slang and how we need to speak better English and this that, and the other. But the pound cake part, um, the pound cake part was he said that if a cop was to shoot a kid that had pound cake in his hand, would you blame the cop or would you blame the kid? And he said that one thing that we need to start doing as a people is what, and then the famous, you know, he said, what the hell are you even doing with the pound cake? And so it's like, stop putting so much focus on us being punished and us doing this. It's more like a personal responsibility thing. And Stu Pease is saying it made it better because it came from, like, a white person couldn't say that, or you know, a person from outside the community couldn't say that about our community, especially something as trivial as pound cake. When Bill Cosby is saying, even if it is something as trivial as pound cake, why he shouldn't have never been stealing it if he did get shot, and that the lesson is stop stealing fucking pound cake. And
Right.
and but the thing is though, Logic, you're very you're right in saying, you know, there's what's a loving beating because we are, you know, the dangers in trying to make it to where one is a loving beating and one is a beating from hate. At the end of it, Stu Peas, I'm gonna just tell you because you're talking to Logic. All Logic is hearing that you just beat my ass. It doesn't matter if it's coming
I'm
from a
waiting for him to
loving
get
place.
to the end.
Yeah, yeah. Like
I'm
the thing
waiting
is,
for him
Logic.
to
I hate
get
to,
to
I
the
hate to
end.
try to come. I tried to explain, but I knew you didn't know the pound cake shit.
But
With Stu Peas, just to cut to the chase, that ain't a good analogy for him because the only thing he heard is that you beat his ass, and
but
then
you
you're not
understand,
gonna care about the loving or the hate.
but you understand where I'm coming from.
No,
That
I
culture
do, but I'm saying you're talking a lot. Logic's not
much
gonna
more old.
No, I
like
mean,
What
you.
you
I'm. That's why I'm trying to hear him because I don't want to get bogged down on what little I disagree with him now because I want to hear his larger point because I may agree with him even though I don't like his
Yeah,
analogy.
but when you
So
said all I
I
know is
doubt
to
it,
beat
but
my
yeah,
ass, yeah. When
yeah,
you
so
said
yeah,
the
so
words,
so
all I
far
know is
I'm
to beat my ass.
yes,
I know that's all you
yes,
got.
so yes, but definitely so far I'm trying to justify not retaliating because that's what I heard, right? So, but I gotta get there before I can say
I got to
anything.
get off the phone.
I'm gonna let it rock for a second.
I got to get off the
yeah,
phone with
yeah, but culturally, what I'm saying that we can accept things when we do it to ourselves more than when other people do it to us. It wouldn't be a big demonstration. You might beat your ass, you're not going outside and demonstrate. You take a beating and you try and confirm that you don't get another beating. But if the white man beat my ass, I'm going to train like Rocky because he's not going to beat my ass again. Right? I'm not going to beat my ass without something happening. Right? But that's what
you.
your
But
culture
wouldn't
is.
hey Stu Peas, but even with culture, wouldn't environment play a part in that? Like one of the reasons why a kid necessarily doesn't go crazy when he gets his ass whipped is because he's around probably in an environment where it's a bunch of other kids around getting their ass whipped too. But my pushback for that would be if you are in an environment where that's foreign, say you're in an environment, a black kid around a bunch of kids whose parents use the timeout rhetoric or the timeout rearing strategy, and you getting your ass kicked, you might call the fucking police. You know,
Right.
I've been in situations where, um, you know, I done told friends around me, like, yeah, man, I got my ass at this and the other. But I also remember going to college and telling that same story and them white people like damn near in tears. Like for real? Like that happened to you? You know what I'm saying? So like that's when I realized like every not that's when you kind of realize that like every childhood, there are certain kids who never been beat before,
But
never
yeah,
had that kind of trauma. That's when you start looking at it like, shit, is this trauma that what she was giving me rather than good rearing
no,
or good,
it's love. It was love. It
raising?
was love. It was love until external factors come into play and decide to disrupt your culture. Those white kids had no pride, no problem to come in to disrupt your culture. And so the culture that got you to university is not as good as their culture that got them to university. You understand how outside factors influence culture now? Because now you got now with the headspace, I've never beaten my child because you don't need to beat your child to go to university.
Right,
Right or wrong? Right or wrong? You see how they influence your culture?
right. Yeah, right or wrong.
External, external factors influence culture. When we come into contact with other people's culture, we were doing okay. It might not be the best, but we're doing okay, doing our shit until other people come in and say, your shit not good enough. And this is how you're supposed to do the shit. Right?
No, no,
And in
I
some
got you. I got the meaning of what you're saying. I'm just saying it's
yeah.
just well, we gotta. Well, not we. I just think that you know, you when we talk about it, that pound cake is a good analogy. Um, but no, it is. It's a great analogy. It's just most people don't get because see, remember with Bill Cosby, uh, remember when he got caught with that fucking when he got caught with the shit he was doing that damn, I'm tripping right now. The sexual misconduct, that shit came back to bite him,
Right.
and that's why, and that's a people don't really know that that's really the reason why he caught so much hell from the black community, because he was always telling the black people that they need to do this and they need to do that, when the whole
And
time what he was doing exactly, he just
he
didn't
had,
get caught.
he had the pound cake.
Yeah,
But
he was the one with the pound cake exactly.
he had the pound cake, right? But coming from so I use that because I thought that more people would understand. Because they didn't understand the whole stepmother mother beating thing. Is that where it comes from directly affect people how they think about it. Where the influence come from. And that is why when people talk about external factor, where the music come from, influences you, right? What was their aim? Their aim was to make a dollar at all costs. So it didn't matter to them if they were SPing NWA, F the police. It don't matter, right? That caused many young men who could have been in the police force, police in the whole community to say, I'm not being a part of a system that I say F you to. Yeah, that's what external influence in a culture does. Sometimes it's positive, sometimes it's negative. Right?
No, I got no. I have no. Yeah, I have no. I agree with you on lockstep. I just want to try and make sure you and Logic got
Yeah, what's
to.
on the same page?
Yeah,
What's
y'all
on the
got
same
to where y'all need to get to.
Yeah, what's on the same
No, I'm
page? That's
not.
what
I actually, Stu Pease actually, when he makes when he makes points, they're really good. I've said it a bunch of times. Sometimes he take a while to land his plane, but I like talking to Stu Pease. I like being able to have the diversity. Like I'm not tripping that he don't wholeheartedly disagree because that's what makes the conversation good. So I'm not tripping.
You
Stu
know
Pease
why Stu
doing great.
Pease you know why Stu Pease does how he does what he does. I'm glad he's here. Is because you could tell somebody that's dealt with a lot of different facets of life. Um, a lot of times when we talk about these conversations, the best we can give is an American point of view, or the best we can give is however many years we've been on this planet point of view. But when you're talking to a striker, and you're also talking to an intelligent motherfucker, you're talking to a motherfucker that, he done had ladies, he done had life experience. You know what I'm saying? They see things in a way where we just can't possibly see it, and that's why it's important. Um, I think honestly, I hate to get into the FBA shit for half a second, but I think that's why they get shouted down as tethers so much. Because in order for some motherfuckers to run a grift on you, the tethers see it a mile away, and you got to tell them to shut up. You got to turn them into motherfuckers that get hated. But if you didn't call the Caribbean motherfuckers tethers, then you might it makes them impossible to be able to grift African Americans who don't know shit. So when somebody's telling you about what's foundational, what's black, and what's American, the tethers are actually the ones that's like, you niggas don't know what the hell y'all talking about. So I've learned that over time. I learned that from that Babylon conversation we had the other day. How easy the tether shit comes out.
Stu Pease is what I call very worldly.
Yeah.
What Stu Pease is.
Yeah.
Stu Pease is the example that I keep giving. He's a little more worldly, which actually broadens our horizons by having the conversations with Stu Pease.
Mm-hmm.
This is what I'm talking about. This is what I started talking about again.
Because we can't see it. You can't see the things that he sees. You need that perspective. It might not always be the right perspective, but it's a different perspective. So to help you shape your perspective. It's like that's why I always tell Corey, talk about them unions, bro. Every chance you get. Every chance you get, talk about the unions, because that's not something people won't even look at. It's like a forgotten strength of the it's a forgotten strength of African Americans to me, is the union class. The hard work is just hard work ain't cool. And that's weird. When hard work ain't cool, when grouping up, and in them unions, there's black, white, all of that. It's not a black union, it's not a white union, it's a union of motherfuckers working hard, and they unite beneath the hard work. So
No. It come back to that. It always come back to, you see, when I go into a community, when I was working in communities, and I go into communities, I used to like to sit down and talk to old people. When my friend went on the boat to other places, he sit down and he talks to old people. But the respect of knowledge, sometimes people don't respect the knowledge of the old people who had experience, who face problems, and how to solve those problems. Right? We're born know it all now. Everybody's a know it all. And when you're in a conversation with a know it all and somebody who needs to be right, when I finish a conversation here, sometimes I don't think about it, but other times I will be sitting down and I start hearing the conversation over again. And I said, what should I have learned from this conversation? What need is he addressing? Right? That's why I don't totally disagree with your friend. Because I play by the conversation in my head. And I understand where he's coming from. But many persons don't do that. When they come off the line, they dismiss everything and they come back tomorrow and they're having the same conversation with talking points that were already rebutted. Right? They didn't learn anything coming out from the conversation. So why have the conversation in the first place? Right? Because I know that Bryce don't agree with me on 90% of the things, but sometimes he thinks about it and you hear him come back and he'll make reference to it in his rebuttal to it. And I appreciate that.
I didn't know what a striker was. Stupides. I didn't know what a striker was. When you said striker that day, you said striker. We got to remember something, Stu. I don't know. I don't claim to know everything. I don't try to know everything. But you said striker. Thank God that somebody else heard it. that it was in a position to tell me shut the fuck up and show some deference when you're talking to that particular person, because that particular person has been through some shit you haven't seen. And I was like, and then we sat and we learned about. He taught me about the strikers and the campaign with Manly and the campaign with Ciega and all of them, and what life was actually like, boots on the ground. And then that's when I came back, like, okay, cool. You know, like now it's like what Chef is saying. It's the world. It's the worldly.
Don't let everybody know. Don't
No,
let
no,
everybody
no, no.
know.
Well, they have to look it up for themselves. But I mean, I don't even think you could look it up 100% because the way that this person described it, and this is a professor at this point. He's a Jamaican professor, and he's like those. He said there are some people, and then that's where I got the talking point of, you know, boots on the ground in Jamaica in the 60s, 70s, and 80s is
Different.
You can't write a book and describe it.
Different. It's different. And the thing about it is that I don't want my son to walk in the shoes that I walk in. And my mother saved me. I tell everybody that my mother saved me. My mother was a brave woman who wasn't afraid to go into the hole to pull her son out. Wasn't afraid. Right? She saved me. But that's a different conversation. One day we're going to talk about conversation like that. But it's a whole total different situation. Right? Culturally, we're not much different. Especially Jamaica, not much different than the African American culture. We have the same drug problem, we have the same music, we have the same sense of self, we walk around with the same kind of confidence. Right? But some people will tell you that no, 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 no. Because we almost fought the same fight. We almost fought the same fight. We might not have had Jim Crow, but I remember my mother telling me about the first black girl who got a job as a teller. And the whole Kingston was so proud of that black girl that her first day of work, nearly 10,000 people stand up on the sidewalk to see a black girl have on a teller uniform going into the bank. That Kingstonian came out in mass to see a dark-skinned girl get a job as a teller. That's what we're fighting. That's what we're fighting. That's what we've always been fighting. For recognition, for a sense of self. To show the world that, listen, I am not only as good as you, I can be better than you. You know what young girl, one young girl inspired? Yeah. Shelley Fraser Price was the first Jamaican to win a 100-meter gold medal at the Olympics. You know how much thousands of Jamaican young girls have Shelley Fraser Price as a hero? And that was when? That was like 20 years ago. She won in her last world championship this year. Even American black girls. Melissa Jefferson. When you hear Melissa Jefferson talk about Shelley Fraser Price, you swear that Shelley Fraser Price is our sister. The same thing with Venus twins. The impact they have, you think it's only limited to the shores of America? So when this asshole Tariq Nasheed is talking, I don't understand the impact that one black person have and the whole world of black people. That you're not only limited to where you are.
But
Villages
Tariq Nasheed knows that though.
Yeah, but that's the asshole.
You know Tariq Nasheed knows that, and you know he agrees with that, so he has to be saying something else. If he did a whole documentary on the Haitian Revolution and you seen the pride that he exuded from, learning about the Haitian Revolution. Why was that a necessity for him to make the documentary for African Americans? Why was Hidden Colors, you dig what I'm saying, such a big deal for him? And he talked about the global Black presence and African presence around the world and their contributions to civilization. So he understands Black as something universal. You dig what I'm saying? So he obviously is talking about something else when he's talking about FBA. So you can't dismiss, him because you've seen his previous work. So what is he talking about with FBA that's making you so uneasy about? It ain't his intelligence or him knowing that Black people collectively as a whole. He's talking about a delineation. Jamaicans can talk about Jamaicans and Jamaican pride and Jamaican and have confidence in it. You dig what I'm saying? You're not going to include an African American or another Black people into your Jamaican history and your Jamaican pride. That's something delineated and separate from the rest of the Black world in totality, right? Do you agree with that?
No, I agree with the delineation. I have no problem with the delineation. Okay. None whatsoever. My problem is this, that what I get, I don't know what other people get from it, but this is what I get from it, right? Is that he's selling to many persons that other people don't take pride in American accomplishment. That other Black people disregard the Black Americans. And that is not true. And that is not true. Right? Many, I'm not going to say all, but many Black persons' resolve was built on those of Martin Luther King, Stokely Carmichael, the Harlem Renaissance. Those people actually impacted Africa at a certain level, the Caribbean at a certain level, that is immeasurable. But if you listen to him speak, it's like other African people, other Caribbean people have no respect for the Americans. And that's not true. And then he said, since they have no respect for the Americans, we should not respect them. That's what he's saying.
Right.
And if you go worldwide and ask Africans about certain individuals, you'll be surprised of what they know. Because even when it was not formally taught, it was talked about. It was talked about.
But then to act like that rivalry between Black ethnic groups don't exist would be disingenuous also. You feel me? To not think that Caribbeans and other Africans, right, that come, or Black people that come to America, even though y'all see the commonality with us, there is competition. There is a level of I want to outdo them niggas also. You dig what I'm saying? Like to a point where we are acknowledging that. You dig what I'm saying? Like, yeah, like Busta Rhymes said it. You know what I mean? When Busta Rhymes sat there and said, Black Americans don't have no culture. You know what I mean? They get it all from us. This, that, and the third. Right? Yo, to act like that's not a sentiment, right, would be disingenuous. Not saying that you feel this way, but there is a type of there is a type of collective it's a type of collectiveness where people from one group does have apprehension and stereotypes about other groups, and particularly African Americans. Like, we have them towards Jamaicans. So I'm not saying it's not something that, you feel me? Like, come on, bro, that's just what it is.
There's some type of adversarial relationship there, you're saying.
Hold on.
We have an adversarial relationship here. Go ahead, though.
Busta Rhymes was wrong when he said that, because for one, when you go back and look at his music career, he wasn't making no reggae. He was making hip hop, bro. He was making rap, and he was rapping like a fucking American. So for him to say that is fucking crazy.
Right.
It's crazy. More American clothes. Like, he didn't dress like no Jamaican when he was coming up in music.
He was at Father's dinner, like.
Can I rebut?
I wanted him to be an electrician like him.
Yeah, can I rebut? Because they're not going to just.
How you going to rebut that? Busta on some bullshit when he said that.
Let me say what I'm saying. Busta Rhymes. Because you're emphasizing on Busta Rhymes. And Busta Rhymes was one example you made. And I'm going to address Busta Rhymes in the end. But there's always been healthy competition among African Americans in the United States of America and Africans who came to the Americans, that is in Jamaica, Trinidad. There's always been healthy competition, but there's always been respect. And I'm going to use an example. Since you use one, I'm going to use one. Sha'Carri Richardson is one of the greatest 100-meter runners ever. She's a rival to Jamaica great Shelley and Fraser Price. Matter of fact, she beat her. Shelley beat her, and she beat back Shelley. When she came to Jamaica, in spite of the competition, when she came to Jamaica to watch her boyfriend at the time race, she went and sit in the bleachers. And when the cameraman identified her and it came over the loudspeaker that she's in the stadium, she could not leave because the amount of Jamaicans who wanted to take photographs with her.
Right.
She could not leave because of the love
that's nice. That's good. Nice one example. That's nice. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
No. He gave Busta Rhymes, so I could give that example. Right? No. He gave Busta Rhymes, I give it. And I can give more examples of other Americans coming to Jamaica and are celebrated. Right? So Busta Rhymes is a second generation Jamaican.
Right.
And many of those Jamaicans, even in Jamaica, we don't call them Jamaicans. It bond them. The term bond means it hurt them to them heart. Because Jamaicans don't call them Jamaicans. Jamaicans say, you're not Jamaican. You have some Jamaican culture, but you're not Jamaican. Right? And his level of competition is different. And what he's saying, what he's speaking from is a point of ignorance.
Exactly. That's what I'm getting after. That you made my point, Stoopy. Thank you.
But I agree with you. I only disagree with you. I'm not remarking that he's speaking from a point of ignorance. But that is the problem here. Because culturally, here and in Jamaica, is that now, instead of we have our educated sector to speak for us, we have our entertainers speaking for us. Imagine watching Vibes Cartel talk about something. You know, it cringe my heart that this dance is the one that representing us because it's popular.
Yep.
So, but that's a problem that we face.
The teacher, they call him the teacher.
You're not unique to Jamaica. Here, the entertainers started speaking for most African Americans. And when did entertainers now become the ones speaking for us? And I classify Tariq Nasheed as an entertainer. Because I don't believe, and this is my belief system, that 10% of Black Americans wholeheartedly agree with you. Wholehearted, I say. Right? But if I say wholeheartedness, I don't agree that 70% of Black Americans wholeheartedly agree with him. Then when they hear him talk about this thing, they just laugh. So I don't make the areas of the FBI a problem with to me. Because I know that the majority of Black Americans, although they understand the need for delineation, as you said, understand the need for their own group, they don't wholeheartedly agree with how he wants to go about alienating other people.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have a problem with it. I don't have a problem with identifying who you are and celebrating who you are. That's culture. I spoke about it earlier. There's a culture developed within a group that everybody look like you and think like you. I have no problem with that
Mm-hmm.
because I understand the root of a culture, where a culture come from. But his process of trying to secure some level of delineation, how his approach with it, that's what I agree with. That's what I disagree with. But I don't have a problem. So if you bring a Buster Rhymes, entertainers don't speak for me.
No,
I
I'm not saying that he speaks for you, but he speaks to a part of your culture, right? Now, you don't have to agree. I don't totally agree with the Nation of Islam, but I can't say that they don't speak for a portion of black sentiment. And I'm not going to act like that some of their sentiments is not in my heart also. You dig what I'm saying? Just because I can disagree with certain things that they say, but basically they encapsulate some thinking of Black America. So what I'm saying is Busta Rhymes and people like him encapsulate some of your ethos of the Jamaicans. You understand what I'm saying?
yeah,
Towards you know what I mean, African American. So to act like that don't exist now, he might have went overboard with it, and you and your intelligence might feel as though, yeah, I don't go for, but you can understand that that
no, I agree.
exists within your psyche somewhere.
And although I didn't say Jamaicans, I'm automatically thinking that you use the same argument that I made against me. That 70% of Americans don't agree with Tariq. The same thing would imply that 70% of Jamaicans wholehearted would not agree with Busta Rhymes. They would not agree with Busta Rhymes. But the thing about it,
They wouldn't agree with him. They wouldn't agree with him. Let me see how I want to say this. They wouldn't agree with him in totality.
right, that's what I said also, wholeheartedly. I use the word
Yeah,
wholeheartedly.
wholeheartedly. But I
Right.
don't need somebody to agree with something wholeheartedly to not have those sentiments also. For instance, the majority of white America is not KKK. And they
Right.
might disagree with KKK, but that don't mean that white America ain't racist also. You think what I'm saying? Just because they not KKK don't mean that they not racist. And just because all Jamaicans or Jamaican Americans ain't Busta Rhymes don't mean that they don't have the sentiment of us versus them. You think what I'm saying? So
Yeah, but then you're going on a dangerous line. Because I can say,
it's all dangerous because you can
yeah,
end up at KKK for white people.
yeah, because the Africans can say, the Africans can say that that black Americans hold the sentiment that they're all booty scratchers. Right? They can say that. Would you agree with
Yeah.
that or
Come
not?
on, come on.
Right? That they hold the sentiment that the Africans are booty scratchers. Because they've been called that many a times by African Americans. African booty scratchers. Right? But that is the sentiment that but the
They
majority
used
of
to
the
call me
African,
that, Stu Peas. Hey, Stu
right,
Peas. That's what they used to call me. They used to call me that in elementary school, just to let you know. The African Americans, right? When they
Yeah.
when they when they when they when they found out where my family was from, they started calling me an African booty scratcher.
Booty
I just
scratcher,
wanted to let
right.
you know that.
It's hard
Yeah,
to put
yeah.
two words together that's more disrespectful than that. I ain't gonna lie.
right? But
Just two words? Yeah, that's pretty disrespectful.
We call dark-skinned black people African booty scratchers.
yeah,
That was a
but,
you feel me? Like
Yeah,
oh,
me too.
it ain't
I've definitely been a victim, yo.
exactly. It
You
ain't
niggas is
I've been
cruel. You niggas is cruel. I
right.
tell
Yeah,
you,
hey,
but it's
oh
not
wow,
Jamaicans
subjected.
can be cruel too.
It's not
Jamaicans can be
subjected
cruel
to
too.
just Africans. We call ourselves
sure.
African booty scratchers, if a nigga is too dark in your family. So your dark skinned
Yeah, but it was
cousin.
a lot of dark skinned niggas. It was a lot of dark skinned niggas
Exactly.
around, but I was the only African booty
Because
scratcher.
they knew
Just to let
you was
you know that.
African. Because they knew you was African. So it wasn't no way around.
But I did that on purpose. I did that on purpose because I know that it would excite a response. Right? But honestly, we're always going to have healthy competition. And within even the culture, you'll have healthy competition. But when it comes to the next level, to make it look like it is vindictive, that's the problem I have with it. Because New York niggas don't like everybody. New York niggas come to Miami at the only place. They will tell you that, right? New York niggas go to the South and act like the people in the South primitive.
Exactly.
Right? So therefore, culturally, you're going to always have a level of competition externally of culture and internally within culture. But when you look at it, that the basis of people has to be separated because they're competing with each other, then you're going to have a problem. Expect competition. Everybody compete within and without themselves, without them group, right? But when you're looking at it as because you're competing with me, you're my enemy. That's not true. That's not true.
I get what he's saying. Like, is he more so leaning into like the natural disposition isn't cooperation? That is that more of what you actually saying, Chef, or am I I'm
No, no,
overshooting the
no,
mark?
no, because there was cooperation at times. You dig what
Mhm.
I'm saying? But there was also delineation. Remember, Jamaicans in the 20th century wasn't their first time coming to the United States, right? They came to the United States during slavery also. You dig what I'm saying? And I guarantee you there was issues during slavery that African Americans and Jamaicans had. Meaning Jamaicans came to America with certain skills. You dig what I'm saying? During slavery. You think that they didn't get special treatment? Those slaves who had particular skills that say
Exactly.
African Americans didn't have. You think that wasn't an issue there? They say a lot of the slave revolts, you know what I mean, in America was sometimes spearheaded by people coming from the Caribbean. You dig what
Now
I'm
wait a
saying?
second, Joe. If based on how you just described that, you wouldn't even fault the people involved. You would fault the person who doing the special treatment. That's like for a fact that that's problematic when you treat people differently in front of each other like that. That's hella problematic.
What's one of the main things that we say about foreigners that they get special treatment? We say that now.
Right. No,
We
no,
totally
I'm
And
not
they
saying
really
that. I'm
don't. They really don't.
no, but I'm
and they
saying that
really
just
don't.
the
They
way that you
really
said it.
don't. It's just something
They
that
really
we
don't get no
use.
special treatment.
It makes us feel better to say that
Still,
foreigners
yep.
get special treatment
Right,
because
but
we
that's
don't
like
want
a
to do
teacher.
the hard fucking work. Anything that
And
foreigners got, we want to say they got it because America going to do that for them, but they won't do it
and
for a nigga.
correction,
Man, shut that shit up. You
they
feel
don't
me?
treat the black immigrants
See,
with it.
there you go. There you go. Now they don't treat the black, but they treat the Chinese different. They treat
They do.
Right.
you know what I'm saying? And all of these groups will say, you are bullshitting. I worked my ass off.
I work my
All of
ass
those
off.
groups will say, nigga, now I'm going to call you lazy because ain't
Yep.
nobody gave me shit.
You shit. Ain't nobody gave me shit. And that's the one thing that I've learned because I've worked with foreigners. I've worked with Asians, Mexicans, and they all say, I don't know why people say they like I know an Arab couple right now. They have 10 children. They came over here broke. Their mother and father came over here broke. You know how much these people worth?
Niggas keep saying everybody got somebody gave them something. That's so disfucking
Work.
respectful, yo.
They own
People work their ass off.
they own their own um tropical smoothie shop that they started from the ground.
They work their ass off and open a tropical smoothie cafe.
Hey,
Hard
Man,
but
work.
chef, but
I don't
chef,
even know how to say that.
saying that certain peoples who come here get special treatment don't necessarily remove their hard work or what or their own industry. You know what I'm saying? It ain't a all or nothing proposition. It's just a fact. Like look at the Ukrainians. Like they're not
What,
treating. They would never in a
what
million years
social
treat
treatment
no.
are the Ukrainians
Hold
getting?
on, hold on, hold on. What do you mean? But all the set asides they get, the billions of dollars they get, and I have to look it up real
The
quick. But
Ukrainian government,
hold
the
on.
Ukrainian government, because they know
No,
Ukrainian people getting billions of dollars.
well, no, well the people that they've brought here specifically, they've been given all kind of stipends and set asides and given
They've been
lodging
giving
and all.
government assistance. So they've been
Yeah,
giving government assistance, food stamps and welfare. And you mad that they giving
nah,
white
nah,
people
nah. They
food
got
stamps and welfare? Who was food stamps and welfare made for? It was made for who? White people.
White
yeah,
people.
but that ain't. But wait a minute, that ain't got
They
nothing to
give
do with my
so
point.
you mad that they giving white people welfare?
No, it's not about being. It's not
This shit
about
crazy.
being mad, brother. Hold on, brother. It's not about being upset. I'm just stating the actual the facts are as they are. That's it. So when Chef says that immigrant groups, I was just making the point that
Just
you
giving
can
them
get.
welfare.
Yeah, I got that. Can I make
Government
my point though,
assistance is
bro?
welfare. What
Brother,
is your
brother,
point,
brother, brother.
Haskell?
I got a real issue with people talking over me. Like you keep doing it, I'm gonna end up cussing you out and calling you names. So I'm just
Haskell. You know who
politely.
this
I'm gonna.
is.
I know who it
Haskell.
is,
You
but
know who this
it
is.
doesn't
And you know
matter who
I
you.
don't care about any names. You can give me names.
Sabio, Sabio, can we just have civil? Can we have a civil conversation without you just cutting me
Cool.
off? That's all
Cool.
I'm
I'm just
asking
trying to
for,
figure
brother.
out what your point is because it don't seem to be making
Yeah,
a
yeah.
point.
But I need you to stop talking in order for me to make my point. Do you get that?
If you think you got one, go ahead. I don't
Stop
think you have one.
fucking talking, please.
Try to make your
My
point.
only man, shut the fuck up, man. Why you niggas act like hoes, bruh? Like you can't. I'm talking to respectfully as fuck, and
Go
you
ahead.
just
I'm
making it a
listening.
and you making it a point to be an asshole.
Right.
Haskell, now you've been on your best behavior all morning. Let's, let's keep the trend
Damn,
going.
I'm.
Keep the
I
trend
done
going. I'm
asked the
proud of
man
you. I'm
5, 6, 7
proud.
fucking times, dog. Please, I'm begging the
I'm
man,
letting you
please, bruh.
go. Waiting
When
for you to
when
go.
when
I'm on
when
site. Go.
Hey,
you
hey,
turn you
Haskell,
turn
you
unstable,
know
nigga,
me and you
dog.
butt heads at times, yo. Don't
Bro,
get
It ain't
derailed,
about
yo. Don't
it
get
ain't about butting
derailed.
heads, bruh.
bro, go ahead.
It ain't about butting heads,
Haskell,
bruh.
go
But
ahead.
every
You,
three
you
words
got the
I'm
floor,
saying, a
bro. You
nigga
got it.
bud. No, I gotta say it, bruh. I gotta get through
No,
this.
you
You
don't.
still cut
Go.
me
I've been
off.
waiting.
Yes, I do, bitch ass nigga. Shut up.
You whole
Fuck
ass
nigga, shut
dummy.
up.
Say what you gotta say, you
Damn,
nigga.
stupid
Say what
ass
the fuck
retarded
you gotta say,
ass
bitch.
nigga.
Say what the fuck you gotta say,
Dumb
you
ass
bitch.
nigga, man.
Now,
Shut the fuck
now
up.
what? You's a bitch too. Now say what the fuck you gotta say,
Shut
bitch.
up, dog. No, I
Say what the
can't
fuck
finish
you
saying
gotta
what I'm
say.
saying if you stop
Say it.
talking.
Say it. All you
You know
gotta do
what?
is say it.
I'm not gonna be yelling at my phone. Yeah, this is
Oh, now
crazy.
you mad. Now you
Use a
mad.
fuck. I am mad. Use a fuck nigga, and I am mad. But somebody else go ahead.
Oh, okay. So I'm gonna go because his point apparently wasn't that important. Because all it sounds like he's doing is he's upset because America has been what honoring their creed to give immigrants welfare assistance when they come over here broke and destitute, as
Man,
the as it says in their
you have a
constitution.
special skill for missing the obvious and missing the point.
That's
That was not the
not
point that I was making.
I
I
didn't
was
get welfare.
simply making the point that towards what Chef was saying was that the whole special treatment thing. And I said that's only reserved for people of their race, right? Or it's not reserved for black folks. That's the only point that I made. Not that I'm mad or they shouldn't do it or none of that. Where did that come from?
Um,
Let me say something. Hold on. Let me say something. People need to understand. Most Caribbean immigrants who come into this country, coming through the filing process, the legal process. When they're coming in
mhm.
this country through the legal process, there is a form that needs to be signed. It's called the affidavit of support. This form is necessary that the person who is coming into America will not be a burden. I'm not talking about those people who come across the border who has access to nothing. The Mexican who come across the border does not get anything. Even when he files his taxes, he cannot file his taxes because
Right.
his social security number is not real. So he does not get back anything. Those Caribbean immigrants who come here, who people say set aside or put aside. No, the majority of Caribbean immigrants who comes here have to sign an affidavit of support. The person is filing for them. Filing means the person is asking that the American government accept this person and bring them in. An affidavit of support, you can go and read it up, says that, listen, I am financially responsible for this person for X period of time until they get their paper.
Until they get right.
Their
Until
green
they
card
can
or their
support
citizenship.
themselves.
Right? They don't get anything. So when somebody saying, oh, set aside have been put aside for the Jamaican immigrants, that is not true. That's also a problem I have with Tariq Nasheed. Because he's exposing lies, he's spreading lies. Go and read up on
They
affidavit
mixing
of
y'all up with the Indian.
right.
They mixing you up with the Indian.
Yeah, go and read up on the affidavit of support, and then you come back. And that's the
They
issue
are
that we're
the
having.
Indians. They are the Indians. Stupid's and them are the Indians. They the West Indians.
Jeff is stupid. Why you got that Becky on your as your avatar? You hella stupid, Chef.
You know. That's why. Light skin chef and light skin Reggie the same barrel.
Oh, that's his brethren. That's the light skinned sister.
Yeah, the light skin
Nah,
Reggie.
that's an inside joke. We got somebody, unruly member of the Discord. We gotta let them know what time it is from time to time. That's all that is.
Okay.
Yeah. Chief X done went completely off the rails, so he get trolled here and there. So that's a part of
Hold
what we
on,
do.
he was already he didn't went further off. He was already off the rails. How much further off the rails did he go?
When you go to doubling down on stupid stuff, we gotta get you. We supposed to get you, dog. We gotta get you. You doubling down on stupid stuff.
You mean tripling down? He was
Oh
already
yeah,
double
yeah.
down.
At this point,
Yeah, triple
I
down
don't
or
even know what the
quadruple.
numeral is. He done
Right.
quadruple, eight-tuplet or whatever it is at this point.
Black card is being brought into question by stupid.
Nah, he been gave that up, stupid. He will. At this point, he on what's the he on COINTEL watch for what? That's what he on. He on COINTEL watch at this point. We trying to figure it out.
Haskell, you're breaking up if you was trying to come back in. Yeah. Go ahead, Haskell. The floor is yours.
Nah, I think you hear my background, bro. Yeah, I wasn't trying to come in.
Yeah, what were you saying? I want to hear.
Oh no, I didn't have any grand point to make. Chef made an assertion that what did he say? Something about set asides or advantages, and I just simply made the observation that does not apply to Black immigrants, and that is a statement of fact. So I don't see why. I just don't get some people sometimes, man. I don't know if a previous interaction that me and some people have sometimes, a nigga will bring that shit into a new discussion. Like, I'm like, why is this man going at me, dog? And just like, cause we been cordial. Like we got some kind of smoke I don't know about, or like, what the fuck going on? Like I asked a nigga 4-5 times, bro, this vibe, bro, let me just get what I'm saying out. And the nigga like, damn, bro, like.
Yeah. Yeah, but trust me,
Well,
a lot of people think that they're set aside, but there's not. Black immigrants, oftentimes, majority of Black immigrants come to America through formal channels of immigration. And those people who come with formal channels of immigration, they're not going to offer them any help or aid. The Cubans
Bruh,
got it
what
when they
they
came
do,
here.
I was just gonna say that. Sorry, I know I'm cutting you off very rudely,
Yeah.
but I was just gonna use that exact same example. The way how the U.S. government treats Cubans versus Haitians is night and fucking day. That's facts. But go ahead, Stupies. I'm sorry to I cut you off.
And
But do
that's
you know
true.
there's some historical undertones and the reason for that? Because the way that the island of Cuba and Haiti are situated, and not only that, because of the history of the island.
No, is
Like you
that
have to
what?
take all that
No,
into
it's
history.
no, no, it's not. It's because one are overtly niggas and one other group is not overtly niggas.
Oh shit!
Ain't got nothing
That
to do with all that convoluted shit you talking about.
oh,
What
oh you're right.
situation of the eye? What are you
You
talking
are
about?
absolutely you're absolutely right. You are absolutely right. I'm not even gonna talk about you. You're right. You're right. You're right. America that signed the treaty that Haiti would not get no assistance from them because of some shit that happened when they got their independence. If you don't know about that, that's not me. That's not
I
for me to
know about
teach you or
that,
you.
Sabio, but that
That's
still
not for me
ties
to
back
teach
to
you.
it
That's
You
still
still
ties
talking
back
yo,
about
to a hold on, but it
it's
still
yo,
ties back to a racial impetus. Them clicking
yo.
up with the French, them clicking up with the French and other European entities to subjugate Haiti, that's still based on race. What are we talking about?
Yeah, I deny that. So I'm saying that it has to do with history. It has nothing to do and which ties into the political situation of Haiti right now. The historical situation ties into the political situation that we are talking about with Haiti and Cuba. If you don't see
it's,
that, I don't know
no,
how you miss
it had to do primarily with race. Is that Haiti was the first African country
It's
with
not
African
100%.
it.
It's not 100%
No,
racist.
it's
You
not.
said
I'm not saying it's
primarily.
all that.
You said
I'm
And
not
it's
even.
not
primarily.
even primarily racist.
No, it's not even.
I
I didn't even
disagree,
say
Brad.
primarily.
No,
I
it's
just said it has.
primarily
It has something to
it's
do with.
primarily when we're talking about, and I can't talk loud and I can't talk long.
Yeah.
It's primarily Haskell. I would say 51% and 49% what you saying. But 51% is the United States treats anybody fleeing communism differently than if you fleeing just for poverty or earthquake or a hurricane. The United
I,
States has
I
always been
vehemently,
go down. You
vehemently
can no,
disagree.
listen. You can
But go
vehemently
ahead.
disagree. That's fine. I'm not, but the Cubans are always seen as fleeing communism. So I'm not going to say they removed the race. I would say either you want to go 51% race and 49%, but people who fleeing Haiti is an impoverished, illegal immigrant, uh, uh, poor, not adding nothing to the economy type thing. But with them, Cuba has always been seen as, oh, you leaving communism? Yeah, come here, we'll show you. So it's a lot of
So
politics when
Brad,
you come up to the United States.
so
I
Brad,
can't talk that long.
so
Go ahead.
Brad, so let me pose a question. Back in the
Uh,
80s when Papa Doc was wilding, what the fuck was Haitians fleeing there?
I
What
don't
was Haitians coming over here for back then?
I
They was
don't know.
coming over here
I
fleeing,
was born in
flee.
1986.
Well,
I don't know.
listen, if you, they were coming over here fleeing a crazy dictator who was oppressing their people. That's what they were coming over here for. That's what Wycliffe came here as, a political refugee.
What is your
If you don't
point?
know, you don't know the history well enough to talk because you're talking about Haitians came over here fleeing the same thing the fucking Cubans was fleeing.
We weren't
Cuba
They
didn't
come
talking
over
about
here
flee
the
for
like
fucking
80s.
vacation.
Okay, hold on.
That's what they
All
came
right,
over here for.
I'm gonna say something. I'm gonna say something real quick. You
That's
know
what
why?
they came.
Haiti, what
You know why?
the Haitians wasn't fleeing communism.
Amazing.
They were
I'm
fleeing
not talking
political
about. I'm not talking
persecution.
about
Well, he's
Haiti
That's what
fleeing
they were
communism.
doing. That's what they
Okay,
were
but
doing.
let me say this. I just want to be clear.
The
We were
Haitians wasn't
talking
fleeing
about in a
communism,
conversation.
Joey. You wrong.
We were speaking in a conversation about Cuba and Haiti, and I'm saying Cubans get a better reception here because the perception among the United States is that they're fleeing communism, and we've always been against communism and called ourselves saviors for people that want to flee it. So it's more like Cuban baseball players and the such. What I was speaking about in regards to Haiti was in Haiti, the narrative is not fleeing communism or fleeing something like that. It's usually fleeing a bad situation, whether it be an earthquake, whether it be a hurricane, whether it be poverty, whether it be fucking Papa Doc, whoever the fuck that is. But I will say this to y'all. This is a side note. Some of y'all motherfuckers need to check some of y'all fucking energy before y'all come in here. Because talking to me like you ain't got no goddamn sense is always gonna get the same fucking response in the same place. I ain't talked to none of you niggas before today, and I ain't said good morning to none of you niggas. So show some fucking respect sometime, and then talk.
I don't know what it is, man. We need
Right.
some etiquette,
Well,
some
well,
etiquette training.
wait there.
Because Joey,
I don't know
real
how
quick.
you. I don't even
Yeah,
know how
hold
you
on,
feel
hold
comfortable to
on,
come in this motherfucker
hold
telling me
on,
I don't know what the fuck
hold
I'm
on,
Yeah,
talking about, and you
hold
don't know
Cindy,
what
on,
the fuck you talking about.
hey,
hold
Brad,
on.
real
Can
quick,
I
Y'all
Joey.
niggas
I
speak?
want,
wilding the
Can
fuck
I
out.
speak? Can I
yeah,
Talking to
y'all
speak?
me.
gotta learn.
Yeah, I'm gonna
Y'all
allow
gotta
you to
learn
speak.
how to
I'm gonna say
Speak
this.
with some
I'm gonna
fucking
say this.
respect.
I'm gonna say this. If you were offended, then I'm gonna apologize. I probably could
That's
have
not an
prevented.
No, I
apology. That's
wasn't
not an
offended. I'm
apology,
just
Joey.
trying to figure out why
Well,
you
listen.
That's
saying. Well,
that's not an
I'm not
apology.
I
offended. I'm
just
just trying to
listen.
figure out why you saying. Hold
Listen.
on.
I
I'm just
just
trying
don't
to figure
listen.
out what made you
I just don't
comfortable
want to.
enough.
Hold on.
Okay,
Hold on.
give me 1 second. You hold on. What I don't understand is I don't understand why if we having a civil conversation, a motherfucker will feel comfortable enough with me to just say, "Shut the fuck up" if you don't know what the fuck you talking about, and you don't know what the fuck you talking about in the conversation. You just came in this bitch loud and wrong. I
Hey,
can't even
Brad,
fucking yell. I cuss you out for doing some shit like that.
let me say something real quick, Brass. You can't tell somebody you don't shut the fuck up, you don't know nothing about history, and then say, if I offended you. You
Yeah,
can't, like,
it's not
some of
even an
you,
apology.
listen, outside of these discussions that we have, right? If there's 10, if there's five or more people on a panel, regardless of how strenuously you may disagree with someone, there should be a certain baseline of etiquette in how these conversations are conducted. It's just too much where I know some people we all consider wild out the wazoo, and you figure they're meant to be disrespected. So I know in every instance you can't necessarily keep that kind of cordialness, right? But I believe that should undergird in every interaction that we have with each other when we having these discussions. You know what I'm saying? Don't do little put downs or you don't know history. Even if he didn't curse at you, even saying something like you don't know history, that's an insult.
Especially when you come into the conversation and don't even know what the fuck we talking about. I think I addressed directly what you was talking about. He started talking
You
about
did.
fucking
You
Papa
you
Doc
you did. He
in
missed
the
he
80s.
missed
I don't even know
he
what
missed your
who the fuck
point.
that is. Yeah.
Brass, what it is he missed your
No,
point, right?
it
He
was
was
it was the
making
not enough history to speak. Like that was what made it wild. Right? Even if you challenging the man and what he know, he might just prove to you what he know. But then you say as if he's not qualified to speak. Now you definitely wild, and it wouldn't matter who you be talking to at that point.
Yeah.
That's just unnecessary.
But no, I
Hey,
got your
Brad,
point.
what
I got your
what
point.
it is, he missed your point entirely, right? And
Mhm.
I just see it so much. See, he was equating communism with uh right
Dictatorship.
with dictatorship or other forms of political abuse. But the point that you were making was specific to communism and a
Mm-hmm.
traditional rivalry that had its
America.
genesis in the Cold War.
Yeah.
So it's not about simply political abuse or whatever. It's specifically about that ideology and that governmental system of communism. He missed that point. With that said, I completely disagree with you, Brass.
No,
But
I know, bro. I know.
yeah,
It's no question you disagree. I love it. And I can't wait to have the Darby conversation, but I'm trying to spare my voice, brother. I just got my voice back. I can't talk really no higher than this. So once I could get it just a little bit better, we'll have that conversation. But I know we disagree. But the cool thing about me and you, Haskell, we've gotten to a point, me and Stu Peace, where we can agree to disagree and then know when we could keep debating, but when we know, it don't got to get contentious. But when a motherfucker just say you don't know what the fuck you talking about, and your name ain't Chef Corey, like a motherfucker like I know, and you just a random motherfucker just talking, I'm assuming you disrespecting me, so I'm gonna give you what you want. I just can't motherfucking yell right. I can't raise my voice that high. But yeah, I don't like. We can all talk. Goddamn,
He told
we're
me I
not
don't know
gonna.
what
We're
I'm
not.
talking about all the time. That's just
Yeah,
how Joey is, though. I don't think y'all should feed too much into it. That's whenever you disagree with the black power, whenever you give alternative view to the conscious community stances on things, that he always go to you don't know what you.
I don't know what it is, Chef.
You know what I mean?
But
Like,
I don't know what I'm talking about, and I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. It just feels different. Like if a motherfucker tell you, you don't really know what you're talking about right now. But if a motherfucker say, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about, now I feel offended. And then when they say, if I hate that apology, bro. I hate when people do that apology. If I offended you, then I didn't mean like get the fuck out. Now you made it worse. You just took salt and poured it on the
Added
fuck
insult to
that.
injury.
Yeah, it's like you don't apologize, bro. You just want to talk. But yeah, y'all go ahead. I ain't
All
trying
right. So where were we?
I didn't know what the fuck I was talking. That's what you
Your mind had moved.
Yeah, my mind is.
Your mind is not moved at
I'm gonna
all.
go on mute. Y'all have
But get some rest, bro. But I don't remember exactly where we are. Where were we though?
We were talking about the set asides and advantages given to immigrants. That's where we last left.
So is that like so now that we're discussing it, I'm not so familiar with that. So is that like in large part a myth that immigrants don't come over here with a economic leg up, or they're not receiving these large packages? And I'm only saying it because I could have sworn I've seen like news stations report on some of the immigrants walking around with like large amounts of money on their I don't know, whatever card the government was giving them. So I don't know if that's not true, but that's where I got. That's the first place that I heard that was the news.
All right. What you're saying is true, that some immigrants receive benefits and receive set aside. I will not deny that. But most African immigrants and Caribbean immigrants, they come through the system formally. So if let's say you come in on a visitor's visa and you run off. Running off means that you overstayed your time and you had no intention of going back to your country of origin. You came to an airport. You do not qualify for any benefits, meaning that you cannot go to any office and apply for any of those benefits, none at all. Right?
But see,
You're a ghost in the system. Those who come through airports. And we know that most African and Caribbean immigrants, they don't swim here. They come through airports. Right?
But
The
you know
Haitian
what?
visitor.
But you know what,
You see?
Susie?
Huh?
You know what, Susie? Because I agree with you with what you're saying, but I think people overlook the a big part of the conversation why these people that may get benefits or get some type of assistance when they come to America, some of these immigrants, is because of some type of war atrocity that America had did to their nation. So there's some type of reparation being paid.
Yeah, that is true, but we're not making reference to that. Because
Right.
when immigrants come through, when those immigrants who come through the southern border.
Stupid. That's what people are missing when they talk about these set asides. These set asides are something that, because America bombed their nation, went to war, destroyed their country, now they're going to help these people get back on their feet and help because through their welfare system. It's still welfare, but it's reparations through welfare because of what America does.
No, I'm trying to explain who qualified. Now, those persons who get temporary protective status, meaning that during the Asian earthquake, tens of thousands of Asians came over and they got temporary protective status. During the initial part of those people coming over, they're oftentimes given benefits because they were formally invited. The Ukrainians, the Venezuelans, all of those people who get TPS, they'll be getting set asides, if you want to define it as that. because they fall under TPS, they can go into the system and request help because most of them come without money in their pocket. But those immigrants that many persons like to point a finger at and chastise are not those immigrants who got the TPS, are those immigrants who came over formally, and some overstayed, and some came over legally through the filing process. They don't get shit. So when people talking about, oh, set asides, you ask who gets set asides and who qualify for set asides. The TPS people may get set asides, but the average immigrant that he's talking about, they don't get it. There's no set asides for them. There's no set asides for the Africans who came over and overstayed, or the Africans whose grandparents filed for them. None whatsoever. But for the Haitians who under the earthquake, those might get. But the Haitians who ran off and jump on the land, they didn't have the same wet foot, dry foot policy that the Cubans have. The Cubans were unique to everybody else in the world. The Cubans, once they landed in America, were legal instantaneously. They could just go to a police station and say, I just came off the boat from Cuba. And they were given set-asides. But many persons like to broaden it like it was applied to everybody, and that's not true. That's not true. Right? The Ukrainians, you invited them over, you're going to assist them. The South African farmers who came over under the invitation of the American government, they're getting assistance. But if you're not invited here, there's no set-asides for you. Right? And that's the problem I have with Tariq's argument. He's not genuine with his argument. He's being disingenuous. He's not speaking the whole truth. He said immigrants are getting set aside. These immigrants, these non-ADOS people. And he speaks in vague terminology. He does not really say black immigrants are getting set aside. He doesn't say that. What he says then is that these black people are qualifying for these scholarships that was earmarked for African Americans. And I will agree with him on that. Because now they're competing for these scholarships. And honestly, very few people, black, white, Indian, Chinese, can compete with a bright Nigerian. And they know it. They know it. So those Nigerians are going to gobble up the scholarships. Now, if you're arguing for that, I'll understand. I'll understand.
I'll give you a perfect example of how a lot of the policy, but not all of it, is racially driven, right? I don't know how much of y'all on the panel are familiar with an Egyptian guy named Mustafa Hefni, right? He's a Nubian guy, Nubian Egyptian, who came to America, I believe, in the 70s, right? And they tried.
Talking about that guy, the bird watcher guy, pause?
No, the guy who shaved his hair off and pretended to be black.
No. That's a different guy. That's a different guy.
The doctor,
yeah.
Muhammad Hefni, the doctor.
Yeah. He's from Egypt.
He wanted them to acknowledge that he was black, and they wouldn't do it.
Right.
And
so not only
in the video, he dark skinned with an afro on. I think I see it.
Oh no.
Yeah, that's him.
Yeah, he got an afro. Yeah. So they told him that you're not black, okay? You're not like these niggas over here, right? You have a culture, you have a tradition, you have a history, et cetera, right? So the greater point that I was about to make is he refused. He so insisted on being recognized as black. He stood on that, right? To the point where a lot of the set-asides and the shit that they had for him, he didn't get it. They told him, yo, if you relinquish that black shit, we'll give you the college shit, we'll give you the bread, we'll give you whatever. You feel me? So that go to show you that there is racial disparity in terms of how, you know what I'm saying, the aid and shit that they do for immigrants. And he could have made his life a whole lot.
Let's look that up. Let's look that up. I don't believe that.
Look, well, that's from his words, unless he's just lying.
Yeah. I don't believe that there was set asides for him as a white person versus him being black.
Yeah, he said if he'd have relented and just been allowed to be classified as white because he's from quote unquote MENA, which is Middle East, North Africa.
They white.
And right, he would have got XYZ, ABC, 1, 2, 3, and all of this other stuff if he'd have just relinquished wanting to be classified as black. And you think he's lying about that?
No, I think it's the same way with the UNESCO shit. You dig what I'm saying? I think that how do I want to say this? I think that we put yeast on certain things that don't need no yeast, and we miscategorize it. You dig what I'm saying? So, you know what I mean? I don't, because what benefit? I'm saying black people, African Americans, get enough set asides as being American. If you don't have no money, yo, let's look at all of the stuff that you can get. You can go to your local welfare office and tell them you don't have no income, and they're going to give you food stipends.
Oh no,
They're going to give you.
Chef, I'm
Hold
sorry
on,
to
let me
cut you off.
finish.
Go ahead. I think you misunderstood the point I was making, though.
Hold
I
on, they're
wasn't
going to
talking
give
about
you.
Black Americans. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, well, you're going to get food stipends. You're going to get a cash allowance, right? They're going to put you in training programs to find better jobs. See if they can put you in training programs to give you certain skills. They'll even allow you to go to college. So I'm trying to figure out, what do these foreigners get, you know what I mean, that black people don't get? Like, and if they got half the shit that we get as Americans, I think they just take better
Oh yeah,
advantage of
yeah.
it.
I agree with you. Yeah, I was making a separate point. The point that I'm making about the whole race thing and how they treat black immigrants versus non-black immigrants, that's a whole separate point from what you're getting at. And I totally agree with what you're saying, Chef.
Chef.
If you're giving a nigga money every month, and you giving them a food stipend, and you telling them they can go to school for free, you telling me, man, come on, yo. I don't know what I don't. If they're giving foreigners, so y'all basically saying they giving foreigners the bag, meaning like they making
Well,
them
that's what
rich then.
Tariq says that. Tariq says that.
Yeah, I don't know if they walking around with 10 G's on their card, but yeah, that's some kind of way it seems like it's promoted that way.
And I guarantee any of y'all who work, y'all black people, if they was to give y'all, take away what y'all make a month and give y'all what they giving them foreigners, and say, y'all would say, fuck no, I'm going to work. Y'all would say, I can't. It's some bullshit. It is some bullshit. Y'all niggas look way better than what, and if y'all pooled y'all resources and was good with y'all credit and all, y'all could do anything y'all want over this motherfucker. Like, come on, yo. We gotta cut the shit, yo. We gotta cut the shit.
We definitely gotta talk more about our options. That's for damn sure. We don't do that enough, but I think we can all agree there.
And then we
when
already
Chef
got
started,
communities.
when Chef started talking about it, when Chef started talking about it, like I think the irony of, like, when I first got around this, I used to like look up a dude named Matthew Lesko. I don't know if y'all familiar with him, but that's the dude who used to be on the midnight commercials with the suit on, and he got all the question marks on it. He talking about all kind of ways that you could get money out the government for free and all that stuff, right? So in one of his things, right, he'll actually tell you that each major city around you has like a community development center. So in that community development center, all you need is an ID, and you could get your bills paid. You know what I'm saying? You could get
Yes.
phone allowance, like all